We have gathered today to bear witness to the end of all boring League of Legends as VCS English is back with day 2 of Spring 2022. Finally, some good league to watch, and I'm so excited to be with you today. Hosting the analyst desk alongside me, I've brought Coach Tim and Marby to walk us through two exciting series. Two best of threes on so forth, and we have all the exciting teams today. Yesterday, VCS technically started, but honestly, who cared about those 4 teams? Today, we have Flash with an entirely new look and an old prodigious ADC coming back, facing off against the disappointment of Winter and the surprise of Spring last year. So which of the two is it going to be today? It's SGB against Flash in Series 1, and then later today, of course, we also have the big rematch of the Winter final, Cerberus against GAM. There are a lot of asterisks on that matchup. We're going to go into that later in the day, but get excited already. First off, let me ask the two of you, because you were on yesterday already. I had to sit out and work on my phones very unhappily looking at the stream every now and again, but I didn't catch too much of it. So Tim, what was your main impression? Maybe the one thing you took away from yesterday. Can be draft, can be team related, whatever comes to mind for you.
I feel like a lot of the games were already decided by early game. It was just, especially second series, the games were snowballed in the mid game and then the game was immediately over. There wasn't really back and forth that we had seen last split as well, where teams were throwing consistently. And even though Luxury struggled a bit in the mid games, same thing there. They got ahead in the early games and they snowballed the lead and won the game. And I think that is kind of what developed yesterday, is that the snowball just wins games.
And Marby, I want to ask you a little bit a slightly different question. Usually VCS, as you know, you have been here for a while, is very slow at adapting to new meta coming in, like maybe the Janna top is something we want to look at. Was there anything yesterday, anything exciting, any new picks, anything we didn't expect to see, or was it just VCS being slow as usual?
VCS, well, I mean, granted haven't really seen too much, but we saw a very strange ADC priority. I think we completely ignored Caitlyn, that nowhere to be seen in picked or banned. We got a Twitch for no reason out of Almina. It didn't do very well, but that wasn't necessarily the fault of that pick. But overall, it seems to be fairly close to the global meta. Overall, they've locked onto that fairly well. It's just that bot lane, which is really weird. And because there's, the weird ADC picks and enchanters are not a thing. And nobody likes to play them here.
I mean, they've never been. I have a little bit of hope, but I want to use your perfect transition here, the ADC position, to go into one of the two teams we're going to see first. It's Flash, and we have a very important ADC for our region back in the league. He was sitting out in winter. No one really knew what was going to happen to him. He wanted to go to a different country, a different league, or a better team. In the end, that plan kind of backfired on him, and he's now stuck on Team Flash, or back on Team Flash. His glory days were on Team Flash. It's Slater. Once the best ADC in the league, once actually basically the master of Artemis. Artemis was his understudy on Team Flash a few years ago. So what can we expect from Slater today? And do you think this ADC meta is going to be to do him good? Marby, let's start with you.
I think there's definitely potential for him to shine, because it is going to be it should be a bot focused meta. It should let them, that we should see Flash trying to play through them and trying to push that advantage where they can. And up against possibly Big Coro, who might be returning for Buffalo, we saw him get a bit of game time in the C game qualifiers. I think he's in there to show up shot calling or something. But against Big Core, I think that can be a very good lane for them to play through. I don't really know if what we think of as Slater champions are really that strong or playable right now, so that could hurt. But they did have a fairly impressive record within those qualifiers, so it could be good for Flash. Flash could be on the way out.
And Coach Tim, you're not as familiar as we are with the history of VCS and all the players, so Marby already alluded to it, the champions of Slater. And you hopefully, you don't know which champions he's referring to. So I'm just going to ask you as, let's say, a non-biased or less biased person on this broadcast here, as Marby and I know what to expect from Slater's champions. How do Kai'Sa and Ezreal do currently in this meta?
I mean, specifically, Ezreal has seen some play with the more AP-heavy build, with, of course, the Crown of the Shattered Queen coming into the meta. Kai'Sa, same thing. You see more AP-heavy build on both of these carries. And specifically, I think for solo queue, Kai'Sa is very underrated and very, very strong, because if she gets rolling, she is insanely strong, and she has a very good item build right now. I'm not too sure how that translates into competitive play, though, because I think range advantage is such a huge thing in the meta right now. You have good frontline champions in a lot of bruisers, and then you have those high range mid laners in Quarky and Victor that we see over and over again, together with those long range AD carries, Jinx, Aphelios, Caitlyn. And I think in all of that, both of these AD carries struggle a lot to find their footing against those high range comps.
That makes a lot of sense to me. I'm super excited to see what Slater is going to bring to the table today. And I want to say, for established fans, just give us the credit right now for actually not talking about SGB for more than 5 minutes. I know, it's hard for us. SGB is kind of the protagonist on this broadcast, so let's finally go on to the other side. SGB, the biggest disappointment. Marby, okay, take it away.
I think that Slater returning is still not the biggest shocker. I mean, it's the big real change for Flash, and I think it is that Yoshino seems to have permanently role swapped. It's not just a fix anymore. He is now the starting mid. I think he's made that role swap completely now.
I want to see Marcus every game. I drafted Marcus as my replacement top laner, and I love this player. I think he's one of the biggest prodigies coming into the series. But I think we should touch on that maybe after game 1, because we haven't really talked about SGB at all so far, and we need to give them a little bit of stage time, even though maybe from the last few splits we have given them a little bit too much attention. A very exciting team. Some of our favorite players are on that team. Taki comes to mind. But looking or keeping at least one eye on the highlights from C games, they seem to be doing much better than they were in spring. In winter, I should say. I'm still confused with these weird timings. In winter, they kind of barely didn't make it to playoffs because they lost 2 series to SPTC. And if they had won those 2 series, they would have been in the playoffs. So SGB, yeah, it was a failure, especially after getting to the finals and challenging GUM in spring. But they weren't too far off. So let's start with Tim. Do you think, from seeing this team, observing this team on their lows in winter, what is the potential of this team? What do they have to fix to come back stronger and make a run for the playoffs again?
I think overall they had very high highs and very low lows, and especially a few of the players have to stabilize. Froggy comes to mind, who was playing a lot of supportive champions, completely getting gapped in lane, getting gapped in CS. I mean, it was a running joke that the guy couldn't CS because he had literally like 5.5 CS per minute in certain games. So that was absolutely horrible, especially in the beginning of the split. Had very big problems outside of maybe Syndra, where he looked decently on. And then for me, the lane really to look at was, of course, Taki on support, and then also a laning partner that I'm not sure who's going to start, because I think they started both at the C Games, is Big Koro versus Shogun, and specifically Shogun, who is only going to turn 18 in March this year, which means he's insanely young.
Yes.
And he didn't have the best split last split.
Really?
But he still looked good. I mean, he looked good, but comparatively to a lot of the other AD carries, he wasn't for me like a top 3 AD carry.
The team play didn't help.
Yeah, the team play didn't help.
I think
but
he was for me.
He wasn't like a standout AD carry top 3. He wasn't really, honestly. He had a lot of faults. He had a decent amount of missed positions, especially in the later team fights, which usually is very normal for a young player. And I think if they can fix that and keep him on the track and get him better and better, he is probably going to be a top 3 AD carry by the end of the split. And then this roster can really compete with the top teams.
I feel like I'm getting gaslit by all these other analysts on the VCS English. They are seeing something in Eddie and not in Shogun, and it's the exact opposite for me. I was very high on Shogun. I thought he was the third best ADC. But whatever. Marby, talk to me about some of the more established members, if you want to. Saigon Buffalo, Bean J had a big slump. He looked a little better in the highlights I saw, so take it away, please.
Yeah, Froggy, as a mid-jungle duo, really just kind of lost how they wanted to play compared to in spring. They seem to have a very solid identity there, and it just kind of fell apart in winter. So... And I think that's from what we've seen, which is not very much from the qualifiers. They seem to have pieced it together a little bit. I'm putting a little bit of that onto Big Koro coming back in, being a much bigger voice in the team, being a veteran presence, and just helping out with the sort of direction and shot calling. Which is why I think we might see him start over Shogun, especially earlier on in the split. Even though I think Shogun would be the better player as an individual. That presence is just kind of what that veterancy and direction is just what Buffalo really needed, because just Husman alone wasn't enough to give it to them.
I'm a little bit confused by what I'm looking at my screen. I think we are just seconds away from draft, potentially. So let's focus on draft. We saw a weird priority on ADCs, you two said. Yeah, and there we are. The draft is starting, so let's head over there. We have... let's use this one. We have the bans already coming in. Zeri is banned. A lot of support bans I'm seeing here. Lulu on red side, and then Thresh and Karma on the blue side for Saigon Buffalo. Saigon Buffalo starting on blue, Flash on red, and first pick Gwen. What is happening, Tim? Please, explain this to me.
I like first pick Gwen because she's very flexible, both in lanes or both in positions and playstyle. She can play side lane, she can play very offensively as a flanking champion, and she can play that kite back style and play with her team. So overall, I like her. And then of course she's flexible with top lane, with jungle, depending how you want it. I think C9 versus GG was a very good example in how you can manipulate the draft in your favor, using that Gwen pick to flex it. And now we're seeing as an answer Xin Zhao and Rice, which is basically a fist-fighting low-range skirmishing comp.
Yeah, I think when you take away the the Caitlyn priority that isn't really here in VCS, Gwen shoots right up to one of the highest priority picks you can look to, and just trading out junglers seems fine. The Rise can be an issue with the really short range, and it's really going to double down on the low range composition as Team Flash. It looks like going pretty much for comfort in mid and 80 carry on this with this Kai'Sa pick. And it is slated Kai'Sa, and you can play kind of long range with the AP build if you just keep throwing out those W's, but interested to see where it comes in, because Buffalo are in a very easy position to just outrange them and keep them at a real distance.
We have the Slater
Kai'Sa. We should take out, they should take out Victor. Because I feel like Corki isn't as much of a problem as a long-range champion, because Rice does very well. We saw that yesterday as well. Rice gets the perma push in mid lane, and then he can roam towards the bot and get the Kai'Sa ahead. But they end up not doing it, and I think Victor specifically has a very solid matchup into Rice, can get priority and trades very early in the matchup, and makes it much harder to play because you're getting outranged massively, and it's so much harder for Rice and Xin Zhao to get into the fight versus that Victor pick. And I expect Saigon to go for it. I mean, it should be probably the pickup pick.
I think Froggy hasn't shown us Corki anyway, right? He has shown us some Victor games, but I don't remember him playing Corki, so maybe that's also a factor in Flash's priorities.
I don't think he's really been in a Corki meta yet, just out of chance. But yeah, Froggy, I think Victor and Syndra is the way to go. They could run the Diana,
no.
But
you don't go Diana Yasuo. You really, really don't here. It's.
I hate Diana with Gwen top. Oh.
That's Diana mid.
It's Froggy. I forgot. Yeah, Marby. Yeah.
Froggy. So they've kind of given up the opportunity to smash them at a distance, and they're gonna go all in. Good. Hooray, VCS.
I mean, we've seen Froggy go Diana before. It's one of his stable picks. I think he even played it in VCSB, right? It was one of his breakout mid lane champions, and he likes to go very aggressive on this champion. We even saw him in the C game, so we have a strong bruiser AP80 AP setup on Saigon Buffalo, and then Shogun on his favorite Jinx to hypercarry in the late game maybe. I can see some potential in that composition. On the other side, much more early game play focused, I'd say. Tim, do you agree?
Yeah, I mean, the Elisa isn't really surprisingly in the VCS after all. But I mean, all I'm asking myself is how hard can you throw away 2 very decent drafts inside 3 picks? And they've managed very well to throw away every draft capital they built up, both with the Diana pick. The Leona is kind of understandable. It's probably the best blind pick engage champion if you want to go for that. Do that, I guess. It's fine. And then the Elisa as an answer isn't really surprising either. But I think for both team comps, there could have been so much better picks, especially here in mid lane for Froggy. I feel like the Diana isn't really the style of team comp that you have, because Saigon had a very good tight back team comp that could play on range with disengage from both the Gwen, who with W ultimate is very good, and just disengaging, putting down the damage. Lee Sin with his kick very good defensively. And then Jinx having an enchantment, even Donna that was still open.
I know you have a lot to say, but I think we are pressed for time, so I think we got the gist. You're not very happy, but disengage in VCS, please. Don't. Reconsider your thinking. So, let's start with Marby. Who's going to win this game? Saigon Buffalo or Flash? First look on Spring 2022.
Overall, I still don't have too much faith in... I still need to be shown something by Flash at this point. Yes, Slater is back, but he's been sitting out for a while, and last time we saw him, he wasn't that great. I'm gonna give it to Buffalo here. I think they should just be a better team, but yeah, I wouldn't be shocked either way.
And Tim?
I think Flash ended up with a better draft, so Saigon wins.
Nice. That's the perfect round. And with that, we are going to give it to our casters on the Rift today. We have for you Milky and Rebel taking away the first series. So, have fun, boys. We have Flash against Saigon Buffalo, first series of the day.
Thank you very much, your way. And Rebel, my first cast, your first cast of the VCS Winter Split. And I know for you, this is your ideal cast because you're casting your favorite team. You're casting Saigon Buffalo. You're casting your boy Froggy. So I don't want to jump onto anyone else except for Froggy and what you can expect from him. Not going against your standard mid laner, going against Yoshino on the rise.
I think Team Flash has started to build this identity of making sure that Yashino in the mid lane is going to feel the most comfortable, and this composition that they've designed is helpful for that. But more specifically, we've seen, especially during like C games and stuff, that Yashino really has taken up this mantle of the mid lane for the side of Team Flash. They've been able to incorporate Marcus, and I think the best addition Team Flash has added for this has actually been Ikigai. Ikigai is the #1 player I've seen that's brand new to the VCS this split, that stepped into C games. The performances that we saw out of him challenging some of the other top tier junglers was absolutely immaculate. And when I saw the name pop up instead of Dante, I know we have mixed opinions on whether Dante was good or bad across the desk and everybody, but Ikigai to me was an upgrade pretty much from the moment I saw him start in C games. So that's really exciting to watch for the side of Team Flash.
Well, for me, I've not seen Ikigai play yet, but as you mentioned, Dante, the previous jungler for Team Flash, coming in as a rookie for the Winter Split, which was only just a couple of months ago, left a lot to be desired in his performances. So I'm really excited to see what Ikigai can pull off, especially against BJ. Another jungler had a fantastic spring split last year. Winter Split, I don't know, something was just missing for BJ. We saw every now and then there was a game where BJ, okay, started to show what he showed in spring, and we're seeing this early gank already to the bottom lane, looking for Arte. Solo picks up the kill with a Sonic Wave, and now it's all on Slater. He's got nowhere to go. It's a double kill for BJ. And Rebel, is BJ back? Maybe too early to answer that question.
It's definitely a little early to answer a question like that, but the important bit was, in the previous split, it looked like they had lost what really made BJ such a terrifying force, which was that Saigon's early game planning in the spring split when they were running basically 3 full rookies across their entire roster. That was what made the difference a lot of the time. And then, of course, when we got to the winter split, it seemed like they'd lost a very, very heavy amount of that early game planning that really made BJ such a force to be reckoned with. Right there, you could see that was a pretty well-designed play down towards the bottom side of the map. that, taking advantage of a little bit of the clearing that had come out from Ikigai, and they were able to get that nice play onto the bottom side. Because, of course, Team Flash, they're rocking a couple of return players from the previous split. Obviously, Marcus and Artie are in the second split. Both of them had their bright spots, and they're still developing, obviously, very much so. Artie actually had a really good SEA Games as well. I wanted to give a bunch of props to him, but you can see the punishments there already inside of this matchup is Taki and Shogun hopefully stepping into a role of being another top bot lane that's going to come out for Saigon Buffalo. I know our desk was mixed on with the performance of Shogun from the previous split, but it's impossible not to put attention onto Taki.
Well, I mean, to go on to Shogun, because this bot lane is something that I do want to talk about. Taki, we all know how good Taki can be as BJ. Having another look towards this top side of the map, but I think Marcus should be outside of striking range. Plus, Ikigai is here, just shadowing his top lane. And Marcus gets a little bit aggressive, and Ikigai not quite needed. But to go back to this point on the bot lane, we've seen how good Taki is. Clearly one of the top 3 supports in the league. But about Shogun, we've not seen him in the winter split. He's had a split off, and Slader also with a split off. I'm really wondering how these two can perform in essentially what is their split back after having some time away from the league.
So Shogun in the previous split had shown us quite a bit of positive play. When Big Koro steps into the lineup, I think Mobby has come to the conclusion, and I think it's a reasonable conclusion about what the purpose of Big Koro is, which is helping with some of the shot calling with this team, because they still have quite a few players that are relatively new, right? BJ is only in now what is the 3rd split of his performance. Froggy's only in like the 5th split of his performance alone. Taki's also in there, and then Shogun, of course, only now in the 2nd split. So they definitely need some additional guidance in some of these situations. So the alternative to this, like you were saying, when it comes to Slater on the bottom side of the map, obviously took the split off for whatever reason, but Slater was up there in terms of ADCs prior to his departure. And so this addition to Team Flash, to me, feels like the linchpin that kind of pulls this whole team together, right? It almost makes them another variant of what happened with Saigon, where Saigon ran back basically Hosmed, who is a superstar top laner, with the rest of these very unknown players. And I know, Yashino, who's very experienced, but you've got Marcus, Ikigai, and Artie, who are 3 kind of rookies who have shown promise over last splits. They tie it all together with another really good ADC, and hopefully that's going to help them out.
Sonic Wave sadly not going to land from the Lee Sin. However, BJ knocked on the tower. He takes 2 tower shots and he will die. The kill though goes over to Artie, and Shogun gets a kill of his own. Now Froggy, rotating down to the bottom side of the map, is caught out. Zenith Blade won't snag onto Ikigai, so he's able to run out. Froggy still alive, a 1-for-1 in the bottom lane.
That situation kind of looked like BJ got a little bit greedy with the positioning in an attempt to punish Slater further after the kill went down onto Artie. You can see the return play rise well over the bottom side of the map.
This is really difficult for Shogun, and Taki just sees the Realm Orb coming in. He throws out his Zenith Blade, and then he thinks, you know what? I'm going to run. Sayonara, you're dead. I'm still alive. And it means that Shogun is 1-1-2.
Level 6 Leona, maybe you can throw down like an ultimate, and maybe you could potentially get your ADC out of that situation, since Shogun had both summoners, but at that point, the Realm Warp was going to mean the ultimate demise in the end anyway. I actually really like the eventuality of the play right there, because not only do they pull BJ off of that, but because they know that BJ's out of the play, they have reinforcements on the bottom side. They're able to push out Froggy because Ikigai's in the jungle ready to cut off the position, and then they go for that extended play onto Shogun with the Rise Realm Warp. I can appreciate the communication that was there from Yashino to make sure that they're able to gank into the bottom side. I want to see what happened with BJ, because again, he tries to land the Q, and he gets headbutt underneath the tower, the ignite, and then it really was just a Q. Oh my goodness. I thought for some reason he had stepped back into Slater in an attempt to put some damage in, but that's not true. It was just a nice headbutt coming out from Artie.
Well, we've got more aggression coming through as Saigon Buffalo attempting to invade the red buff, but Yoshino is able to secure the red. Sure, it doesn't go on to Ikigai, but it doesn't go on to BJ either. And we all know the strongest thing that a Rise can get as a mid laner is a red buff.
I think you'd rather it be blue, but you're going to take buffs one way or another. Actually, they're right back on to Marcus. They've just shifted immediately up the top side.
Marcus trying his best to stop the minion wave from crashing on the tower, but it will crash nonetheless. Taki tanking up the tower shot, very well executed by Saigon Buffalo. Shogun has to be careful, otherwise Arte will be jumping on top of him as quick as you like.
We've already jumped into a different area of play that we've seen from Saigon Buffalo, because again back in the spring split, a lot of what mandated their really high level of success that got them second place was earlier game planning, and here they've been a lot more aggressive, and it feels like they're making consistent moves across the map. In the previous split, we had talked about how passive they were in the early game, how often it was that other teams were really making plays into them. But in this game, you've seen, I mean, BJ already has 4 kill participation. He's found himself multiple ganks across a number of these different lanes. This has been kind of incredible to watch how this team is definitely they're way different than what we saw in the winter split, where it seemed like they didn't have this kind of aggression to be able to put out.
You talk about the fact that BJ has a 4 kill participation, 100% of all of the kills. But let's not forget Taki as well, 004. He's also been part of all of these plays, making sure that he's moving with BJ. Sure, we've only seen it one time where they moved towards the top side of the map and they got the kill onto Marcus, but he was there nonetheless. And I'm interested to see whether BJ and Taki can continue to roam together. I want to go back to a previous point I mentioned because I did make a bit of a mistake. I said Shogun didn't play in the winter split. His winter split was his first split. And he came in for a few games, replacing Arietti, or as you would say, Arietti. Thankfully, we don't have to debate on that anymore because Arietti is not on Saigon Buffalo. But I did think that Shogun had some decent performances. And we get an engage on the top side of the map. Marcus will be able to survive.
Goodness gracious, though. BJ just continues to lay on the pressure in this earlier stage of the game. This is so reminiscent of when he was like a first incoming rookie, and we got to see the look at basically what was like the Udi or Hecker meta, where this was pretty standard of just like constantly moving into lanes, using Predator and just walking in or whatever the situation might have been to be able to get on top of others with like the Chem Tank when it first came out and that kind of thing. That was like BJ's bread and butter meta. Like he looked so good during that, which is why in the last split, I think that's what confused me the most, was like when the meta swapped, all of a sudden BJ just didn't have the same performance, but here he's doing it on Lee Sin.
All of the crowd control thrown down onto Ikigai. He wanted to get a blue buff, but instead he will just get death. Super Mega Death Rocket from the bottom lane. And Taki has fallen. Arte is no good kick. Trying to knock up onto Yoshino as well, as Hazmed is on the hunt, but he can't snip, and cut Arte down. BJ showing up. Arte still alive. Headbutt pulverizer to do. Stops the Froggy engage, but the Crescent Strike will find 2 kills. And overall, it is a 3 kills for 2 with Saigon Buffalo coming out on top, courtesy of Froggy's roam from the mid lane.
You can really appreciate the difference of draft and the difference of playstyle from Saigon. They're so much more willing to skirmish in the earlier stage of the game, which again, like I said, this is far more reminiscent of what we saw in spring from the last season than what we saw in winter from the team. And especially because, how much we expected them to be able to accomplish after getting second in a split. This is really promising. I know we're only in the first game, so it's super upsetting. This was Ikigai going a little bit too far. Obviously, 3 members here from Flash being able to pinch them in was kind of crazy. The kick from BJ, though. How about a kick from BJ putting all 3 members together? Heck, if Hosmed finds Artie right there with that last auto attack, this play becomes completely disastrous. I mean, they already lose 3 full members just because of the play alone. But if you end up getting a kill onto Hosmed as well, this is just a completely chalked situation from the side of Team Flash. They have to figure out a way to really stop the onslaught that BJ is bringing right now, because they do eventually get like the Rise that's going to be able to handle shorter range at least a little bit. Marcus is going to have damage for the later game as well, so hopefully they're able to get into that position for themselves.
Well, there's a Realm Orb coming up, and Hazme, can he get the kill onto Marcus quickly enough? No, he cannot. Yoshino will pick up the kill, miss one of the needlework stacks, and as a result, Marcus able to stay alive. But this is why we love the VCS Rebel. It doesn't matter what kind of meta we're in. Solar Flare being dropped down onto the bottom lane, but no extra aggression being shown by Taki, and they don't get the cleanse from Slade either. But it doesn't matter what meta we are in. We're always going to get Atlas to Leona. We're always going to get jungles roaming. We're always going to get skirmishes. And Slade and Arte being forced away from their tower, but Ikigai trying to shadow, get spotted out by a ward. And Saigon Buffalo will have to back out of the play and just let the minions crash in and let Slader pick up the farm.
They're leaning a little bit too far into this. This is really kind of worrisome because Rise is shifting for blue buff or just to help cover the rest of the jungle, and no one is here to cover the mid lane, so that's going to be a couple of plates dropped onto Froggy. They were trying to, I think, break the bottom tower, but this actually ends up probably being more valuable, just because if you don't break bottom tower, I know you're not getting the gold necessarily into the Jinx, but you are putting it into your Diana, which is for more skirmish power. Marcus actually catches out BJ on the red buff.
BJ being so incredibly aggressive, almost caught out by Marcus, but able to stay alive. Now we've got a 2v3, but BJ and Husman making their way down. Super Mega Death Rocket chips onto the health bar of Yoshino, but he's still trying to turn this around. Taki, BJ, Froggy, solo, but Husman is a full health, and Yoshino will be able to get the shutdown onto BJ, which makes the overall play a 1-for-1. And once again, it's Yoshino who gets the red buff. He really likes this red buff.
If only he were on a champion that uses it just a little bit better, because it would be incredibly mean to have this again and again on your mid laner when this actually comes about. It's actually astonishing the difference of performance that we see from Yoshino today. I know we've talked quite a bit about Saigon because of the 15 kills in only 13 minutes, and a lot of that being off the pressure that they've put. But Yoshino today has already shown so much better propensity out of the mid lane, especially on the comfortable Rise pick, because that is at least a champion that in the old school was a top laner. But the fact that Yoshino's been able to have the pressure that he has, he's moved out of mid lane effectively alongside what the Diana has been for some of the skirmishing, but the ultimates have been there as well to help cover the lanes. This was another situation where he helps cover to make sure that the interior of this play doesn't go completely wrong, and then he's able to clean up on the backside of this. There's 3 members with low health. Yoshino is able to find a nice flash kill onto BJ. That helps turn the tide of that, because it was just a 1-for-1 and they don't have the health to completely retake in that situation because the reinforce was there from the rest of his team.
I don't know if it was calculated or sheer luck from Yoshino. Knowing Yoshino, it was probably calculated, but he actually tanked the Super Mega Death Rocket, which prevented Ikigai from dying. But now the Solar Flare has been dropped down, and oh dear, Yoshino, just as I start to praise him, he gets caught out and he gives a whole bunch of gold away to Saigon Buffalo.
One big problem I think that's held right now from the side of Team Flash is that Slater can't move very effectively. When you're playing against a Jinx, she's going to have the wave clear control up against the lower kind of range and a lower wave clear ADC like the Kai'Sa that Slater's, he's gone back to time and time again. I know Yulwei always has things to say about this particular pick, but I think it's caused quite a bit of strife on the bottom side of the map.
Well, final tower shot takes Taki super low, but so is Arte as well. They don't burn any of the summoners from Slater, and I do want to touch on this mid lane right now. Yoshino against Froggy, because... Actually, no, never mind. It's the VCS. I don't have time to talk about narratives, do I? Because we've got more aggression. Now it's in the top lane. Crescent Strike. Froggy with a roam. Picks up the kill, and deservedly so.
Very, very effective usage of what is the roaming power off the back of Yoshino going down in this middle lane. It means that a push out gets to come through from Froggy. They were able to pick up the entire mid tower off the back of a second play, and then the roam to top to be able to help supporting Hosmed. Again, when you think back, I can't keep mentioning this enough because it's worthwhile talking about, because Saigon, they looked like they were lost in the previous split without a way of actually winning a game, but this was how they found all of their success, was out of their mid jungle positions.
Good solar flare. Shogun flashing away. Now can potentially turn back some damage onto Yoshino. And Ikigai, Taki so low. But the final overload will not land onto Taki. Taki will survive. But a lot of minions denied away from Shogun. And a tower picked up by the side of Team Flash. Not the first tower of the game. That goes to the side of Saigon Buffalo.
Yeah, they were able to force into it. Mid lane and top lane towers both taken down by Saigon in exchange for a bit of movement on the bottom side. So we see trades and blows back and forth between the two teams. I think eventually this game gets to a point where Jinx is going to be ridiculously valuable for a team fight, and they've got good ways of engaging from a distance, right? Like Diana having 4 kills and 0 deaths at this point for Froggy makes it so menacing that if you stand 2-3 members together, that all of a sudden they just get completely ripped apart by this Diana burst. You throw that in with Gwen, who's going to be able to contribute to that team fight, and then you throw a BJ kick in, you throw anything from Taki into the CC. It just means that there's a meat grinder that Shogun gets to completely add additional blades to all over again for against Team Flash. So for Team Flash, I feel like the person that should really be putting focus into was actually Marcus most of this game, because that's how you pressure down Froggy to make sure he can't jump in. That's how you pressure down Shogun to make sure he can't walk forward in a fight, add additional blades to the rest of the meat grinder that this team's put together. But unfortunately, he's kind of been the deficit. He's got 3 deaths at this point. He's leading a bit of CS over top of Hosmed, which is rather nice, but not until 3 items will Marcus really start to have a massive impact on the map. It's a question of can Saigon get enough done by then, but it seems like at this point, the pace that they're playing at, they should be able to get more done.
Well, Marcus is just being run down by Froggy. Froggy gives a little thumbs up and a super mega death rocket just to cause some fireworks to celebrate Marcus's death on the top side. That will land onto Ikigai. Any further aggression? No, but the Rift Herald has been dropped down, and this could be the first inner tower of the game falling. However, you can see on the mini-map on the bottom right of your screen, Yoshino making his way up, and Saigon Buffalo are respecting this.
And it's a very kind of individualistic pick that's actually really making this game difficult, I think, for the side of Team Flash. I'm going to ignore this because we have another red buff potential take and more of a fight.
Well, Shogun caught out. No red buff for Yoshino this time. Yoshino looks to Taki, but he sees that there's a blast cone. He could have flashed to the same side of the blast cone as Taki, but maybe a little bit too much investment to kill a support. Instead, they turn their attention towards BJ. Now Yoshino flashes, locks down BJ with a rune prison. BJ tries to turn his attention to Slater, but will not have the damage. And BJ will fall. Ikigai snagging onto Taki. Oh, Yoshino is playing this so well as well. And it's just another kill for Team Flash. Saigon Buffalo, after making that aggressive play in the mid lane, they just stay too long and they disrespect the rotation from Yoshino. They disrespect the power that Team Flash have, and they're punished for it.
It was like 3 full members from Saigon Buffalo were standing on top of Vision over the course of that last minute of play that caused them all to go down individually to Team Flash. You think at some point a full retreat would have just been called and they would have gone for a full back timing. So yeah, maybe one of them get punished, but eventually like that's not the case. But like 2 members straight between BJ and Taki both just got run down because they were standing on ward and didn't even realize it, which is kind of just sloppy play from Saigon Buffalo, not being able to set up the vision control on their top side well enough to be able to kind of entrench the way that they wanted to. Hosmet did get an opening on bottom side, but unfortunately he's not quite strong enough on the Gwen to be able to just walk up to the bottom tower and start throwing shots into it. So instead it's just a couple of waves that he gets to catch and a couple of kills into the side of Team Flash, who are making this a really competitive game despite a lot of what happened in the earlier phases that went well for Saigon.
Arte headbutts into the wall, pulverizes to stop the dash away. To be fair, Marcus did almost die. Does not matter. The kill still goes the way of Team Flash as we now get aggression. Sonic Wave and the Death Rocket do not land onto Slater, who's able to flash over the wall and then walk his way out to safety. Now, I do want to touch on this mid lane because hopefully we should get a little bit of a lull state for a bit of a time, because I want to touch on Froggy and Yoshino. Yoshino coming in as a top laner. He's won the VCS previously with Team Flash, but his winter split was not great. Okay, it wasn't great for Team Flash. Yoshino played well at the start, but then things looked iffy. He also role swapped to mid at one point, I believe, for a series against Team Secret, and he played terribly. So if you had told me at the start of the day that Yoshino would be smurfing in the mid lane against Saigon Buffalo, I would have told you that you were absolutely out of your mind.
I think if you had walked into today and you said that our mid laners at this point, at 20 minutes, we're going to combine for 10 kills, 4 assists, and only 2 deaths, I think that would have actually been miraculous. The fact that Yoshino's been able to have an impact, the fact that like Froggy's staying consistent in CS, but also having a pretty massive impact on this melee type, like skirmish heavy like mid laner, these two have had a pretty massive flow, a sway over what happens in this game, which is pretty big to think about. Eventually, this is going to grow even bigger because again, when you get to full-on team fights, Yoshino is going to be going for a lot tankier of a Rise build, so it's going to be consistent damage and it's going to be hard to bring him down, but it's not that same kind of one-to-one burst that's going to be able to bring down a bunch of members. That's where Marcus and then eventually Slater is going to be able to step in for a bit more of assistance in that regard. And on the other side, of course, the immediate burst from Saigon I talked about being the start off so that Shogun can do the rest of the damage inside of a team fight, being able to get him into the right position. The 2 mid laners, like you said, I don't know that it would have been easy to call either of these two a top 4 mid laner to begin this split. I think it would have been really difficult to stomach that fact for anybody that watched the previous one, but they're playing really well today.
Yeah, especially when you've got the likes of Glory, Blazes, Yado, Kati in the league. I mean, where do you put Yoshino and Froggy relative to that? Yes, we've seen good splits from Froggy, and I actually want to touch on Froggy a little bit more because, you're Froggy's #1 fan. I think there's no denying that whatsoever, Rebel. And I was a little bit harsh on Froggy last split, and I think that was reasonable. But we had seen games from Froggy when Saigon Buffalo play around the mid lane, and instead of demanding Froggy to always rotate to side lanes, Froggy is able to do well, and Froggy is able to keep up his CS. And now Saigon Buffalo looking towards this Baron as well. We'll see where the Team Flash can contest his teleport coming through, and the Baron is down to under 2,000 health. Taki just buying time, and the Baron has been secured. But now the fight will begin. And will the fight be secured by Saigon Buffalo as well? Ikigai, aligning the wind becomes lightning onto Taki. As the empowered shock blast does not find anyone. Right. Froggy sitting on the side, waiting to go in. But he is denied the engage by Arte. Ikigai now looking towards Taki, dropping down the damage. Killer Instinct comes through. As eventually, Froggy finds his way in and will be able to get the kill onto Marcus. Crescent Guard drop down, trying to get on top of BJ, who's already on half HP, but Shogun is just a free firing into the back line. Goes the BJ, but what can Yoshino do? The spell flux coming in absolutely massive, but it's a 2v1, and Yoshino will not be able to do much. It will be the side of Saigon Buffalo coming out on top, 5 kills for 3, and 2 members still with the Baron buff available.
The very quick Baron call was very decisive from the side of Saigon Buffalo, which starts off this entire play in such a meaningful way, because no matter what the situation, Baron buff has gone over to this team. If they get 3-4 members out, they're completely okay with this. But Saigon, even after the play is developed, is still thinking of a way of how do we turn this into our advantage. Something that, again, we don't often get to see is their improvisation. It doesn't come up that much because oftentimes we think of this as a team that prepares really well, but they don't have that kind of bone in their system. But here we see a good amount of that, especially Froggy on the right side flank. They really try to combine the Leona ultimate with everything. If they land that onto 5 members, this fight just goes completely awry. But Froggy still finds an entrance, is able to bring down Marcus in the midst of this play, and it kind of sets up this 3-on-3 where you've got BJ and you've got Hosmed, both of whom are very good in the melee, especially in a choke point like this against Slater and against Yoshino. And it also allows Shogun to work his way up a little bit. They put so much focus into bringing down Jinx. Again, you don't realize the meat grinder that's sitting in front of you between the Lee Sin and the Gwen. So it's a team fight that I think ultimately the side of Team Flash found the right members, but they didn't find them anywhere near fast enough because there's so many threats on Saigon's side.
Pinch me, Rebel. I think I'm dreaming. I'm seeing clean play from the VCS. Saigon Buffalo and Team Flash, 2 of the teams we weren't expecting to do too well. 2 of the teams who underperformed in the winter split, looking absolutely fantastic, and a really good fight. One where there's so many little micro decisions that have been made, and maybe you don't make one micro decision and the fight swings the other way. 25 minutes into the game, a 3k goal lead for Saigon Buffalo, and they still have the Baron empowerment available. They can still push on in this bottom lane. BJ looking for a flank, looking for a potential play, but Saigon Buffalo will just siege for now.
Ooh. I will know, first off, it's only about a 3,000 gold advantage for Saigon. At 25 minutes, it's not the most impactful in the entire world. Second item is completed for Marcus. We're getting into third item territory. And even bigger is we have third item territory for Slater, who's gone for more of the AP Kai'Sa with the Naster's Tooth for the upgrade, as well as the Crown of the Shattered Queen, which makes it so that this, like the Siege Engine Kai'Sa, the one that a lot of people probably recognize more from ARAM than from standard games, really does come online. You can see W after W, you throw it into the enemy team. It's like an AP version of the Jace. So that means that they could chip down some of the health bars, especially a Froggy before the fight starts off, but also a BJ of Hosmed if they're able to find him, so that you can't throw all these members into the enemy team. You can see the impact that it's had. Slater really started to come into the damage again. Once Marcus gets there, all of a sudden the poke from his team does start to mount up in pretty significant way, and that's going to force Saigon to make very aggressive and immediate moves to find an engagement against this squad before anything really bad happens, or before their health bars are ticked too far down to where they can't find that engagement they're looking for.
Now, I want to talk about the overall state of the game, because we had a lot of the tiers being picked up from members of Team Flash. They are all completed. They are all upgraded into their relevant items. Previous fight, Froggy dropping off from 10 stacks on the I was going to say Morellonomicon. Why would I be saying that? On the Medjay Soul Stealer, down to 6. So I want to talk about these upcoming fights, because we heard from the analyst desk talking at the start about how Team Flash have a relatively low range composition because of this Kai'Sa and the Rise. So how do they want to start fights? What is the win condition for them to be able to get a successful fight?
I think their job really is not ever to take a full-on engagement. If they start taking full-on engagements before they've been able to land any poke, all of a sudden you have the risk of not only BJ being able to kick, but also you have the Diana ultimate being able to tear you up. Hosmed's ultimate, again, I called this a meat grinder for a reason. And it's because every champion that goes in on top of this Team Flash squad can do some really significant damage.
Well, Solar Flare dropped down on top of Yoshino, and he is going nowhere. It's a free kill for Saigon Buffalo. They get the inner tower. And now they keep on pushing forward in the top lane. Arte, Slater, Ikigai, what can you do? Can you find an engage? Because Marcus has been split pushing in the bottom lane. He's going to have to back. But by the time he returns, the inhibitor will be all but gone. Team Flash will not be able to force a fight. They are just 3 members. Arte a little bit further away. Baron up in under a minute. And hope is starting to dwindle from Team Flash. And now Saigon Buffalo might be looking for a little sneaky Deathbrush play as well.
Yeah, it's significantly harder to play this Team Flash composition out as the game goes on because they don't have the engage. They're the ones that have to land the poke ahead of time. But because Saigon's got this big gold advantage and they've got so much control on the map, it's so much harder to kind of like dice out vision control to be able to capture control of one area of the map without Saigon being able to contest it in a significant way. Taki, this is the second time, man. Why are we backing on vision?
Oh, poor old Taki. I think he's been watching a bit of my own Leona solo queue with that. But this is really important because Baron's up in 10 seconds time and Saigon Buffalo only have 4 members alive.
They do. Not to mention, they didn't really have this massive Baron setup. They had vision in the opposing jungle, and they do have this one ward in the pit. But the ability to walk in blindly against this Team Flash composition, who have a bunch of poke to be able to work with, does still make this difficult for Saigon. They're down multiple members. BJ walks right past Artie.
And Arte now being engaged on, and it's enough to stop Team Flash from securing the Baron. And Baron will reset. Taki up in a few seconds' time. Look at Marcus, looking for the flank. But in goes BJ, and Arte is already down. Marcus still waiting patiently, waiting for the perfect opportunity to go in. But the fires are occurring, and Marcus is going to be so late to this play. In goes BJ once again, gets the kill onto Ikigai. They look for Yoshino. Yoshino falls. Slater falls as well. And Marcus was waiting for the flank that never showed up. Marcus now on the back foot. Froggy and Taki looking to run him down. Solo player will be available, but the Shield of Daybreak means it's a free setup onto the top laner of Team Flash, and it will be the kill, it will be the ace, and it will be Saigon Buffalo onto the Nexus Towers of Team Flash. A 30-minute game. Saigon Buffalo always looked to be in control. They had a few blips, but it was a calm and collected win at the end.
I gotta be honest, yesterday we had a lot of games where it felt like, things didn't go right necessarily for any individual team. We had a situation in which all 4 teams felt like they had improvements to make. Saigon and Team Flash actually both performed above what I expected for them today. Team Flash is projected at like the very bottom of the standings or very close to the bottom of the standings, and I thought they had moments of brilliance. And more importantly, Saigon, they looked like they were right back in form. I know we're only 1 game into this split, but it's worthwhile talking about that. I love the way the first game played out for both these teams, but congrats to Saigon and their very dominating win. Props to BJ especially. That last split was really rough for him. That right there was a comeback type performance.
Absolutely fantastic from Saigon Buffalo. And as you mentioned, Rebel, I think we expected a little bit less from both of these teams considering how their 2021 winter split panned out. But having seen this performance, I am exceptionally excited to see how these two teams will develop, not only just over this series itself, but over the course of the whole season, because they are showing a lot of potential. And I think with that, we are going to be throwing to a short break. And when we return, we will be having the analysts breaking down that game before we head into game 2 of the series. So don't go anywhere. We'll be back shortly.
Hello, we're back with post-game of Game 1. Very exciting one. We expected these teams to be fist-fighting a little bit, and they did. So I think we're all happy. Some more than others, maybe, if I judge by the post-game conversation. Let's start with you, Tim. You had some very emotional things to say about this game. So what were the biggest points taking away from this?
Yeah, I mean, I think the Diana pick was really bad, and I think that was the only point we were really agreeing on. And then for me, like I think first thing BJ is just a beast, and he won this game alone. Like he could have literally had some silver players playing with him, and he probably would have still won the game. Considering his performance. He had one situation where he missed his flash Q and then got kicked down a turret and died, but we're not talking about that. That never happened. And then you probably have one of the best games. I would guess in the season. Also going forward, I would expect from any player. He was playing insane, and then I was of the opinion that Froggy did nothing really. I mean, for me, he didn't play bad, and he had some good engages. Like at the disengage at Baron, he got at least a kill out of his position. But I felt like especially him on Diana was not really impacting the game, and he could have also not been there, and it probably would have resulted in the same game. So yeah, that was kind of my feeling about the game.
Marby, you want to take over?
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously BJ was the standout, but overall we had, I really liked from both of these teams. We saw a very, very interesting compared to a global meta. Both of the teams instantly just pick up these Moby boots and head like straight to the top side at like 4 minutes. It was kind of crazy, and we saw a lot of skirmishing. Taki's first 15 minutes with BJ was really good. He kind of just let himself get caught down, became not very impactful later on, but that lead off that support jungle duo really got things kicked off. It was really great. I think Froggy was very good at being in the right place at the right time, not necessarily being able to roam first and stuff, getting crushed in the matchup because Diana's not a good pick, but I think managed to make it work fairly well, have good use of it, and even though Haasmed had a very quiet early game, came into it in the team fight, and it worked out very well for Buffalo. It all sort of came together nicely, with each player kind of having their big moment, except for maybe Shogun, who was just kind of along for the ride this game, but eh.
ADCs? I definitely think we saw some glimpses of spring 2021 Saigon Buffalo, maybe not quite there individually, especially in the laning phase. When we think back about spring, or back to spring 2021, I should say, Hasmid was in contention for best top laner, Froggy was actually up there, and their bot lane was doing great as well. So maybe laning phase is still a little bit of an issue comparatively, but in terms of team synergy, and definitely with BJ looking so much better. BJ was one of the most disappointing players since winter 2021. So now coming back, Lee Sin has always been one of his best champions. So maybe something Flash needs to address here. But I also like to see Taki roaming together with Froggy and BJ again. So much more proactivity from their side. Let's look at Flash, the losing team here. Yoshino mid lane seems to be the answer. Is Marcus top lane the answer, though? I'm personally a big fan of him, but what do you guys think?
I think he held up very well in lane. He was playing the lane out quite well, but his team fighting left a lot to be desired. Maybe it can come around on a pick that's more suited to team fights rather than the Jace, but that like flank at the Baron really stands out to me. It's just, I'm gonna come. I'm coming, fellas. Coming.
Just 1 second.
Just hold on, I'm tying my shoes. It's just, yeah, great lane, poor team fights was kind of the story of it. Yoshino, again, we kind of need to see him on more than just the Rise, but the Rise looks good. I'm very happy to see him in mid lane.
And we're already into draft, so very quickly, Tim, what are the priority champions for Game 2? Do you think anything changes? Zeri is still open.
Yeah, I mean, Zeri's still open. I'm interested to see if Saigon bans it again because they banned it on blue side last game. What I would have liked to see maybe is Flash limiting those early aggressive junglers, which are all basically open, and then just make sure that BJ doesn't get one of those. and play it from there, because I think you can easily double down on your solo lanes. Both of them look really good in the isolated matchups. And then if your jungler doesn't get gapped really hard and your bot lane just plays even as they did in last game, you just might stand a chance to win the game. But no, with BNJ probably getting one of those aggressive junglers once again, I'm really worried for Team Flash's jungle position.
And there we
actually picked up.
go.
We see Mr. Slater on Zeri, boys.
So BNJ moving to the Xin Zhao should mean he's probably not going to be quite as aggressive this time. Ikigai, look, that last game you can probably just sort of write off as, you know, it's your first game, and BNJ had a monster performance. Gonna give him another go. He's on the Lee Sin this time. If his solo lanes could put up a similar performance, yeah, I want to see him being a bit more proactive, trying to make things happen. This time, it's the onus is on him rather than just sort of leaning on, I'm Xin Zhao, I always have my ult. But yeah, Team Flash have picked up a very good 1-2-3 so far.
And it's Slater Zeri. He's going to be the first one to present us with this new champion. Where do we come down on Slater in game one? We didn't really touch on Slater in the post game, so maybe just a slight excursion. Slater's performance game one. Was he good? Was he bad? We'll see.
He was okay. I think he had some trouble in the laning phase. It's not an easy laning phase to play out, and he didn't get solo killed or anything. He had some very good ultimates, but overall he didn't really have an impact. But I'm not sure how much that was to his play or to his champion that was really limited in what it could do with the Kai'Sa in the game. So I'm really interested to see how Zeri goes, because Zeri has a very, very weak laning phase. You basically get guaranteed a free laning phase for a Jinx here, and it then comes down to how much impact can he have in the team fights once he hits those 1.5 items, 2 items, 2.5 items.
See a lot of enchanters banned here on the second phase. Of course, Zeri, Yuumi, very strong combination. Do we expect another enchanter to come in? Maybe Nami together with Zeri? Or is there another champion you would like to see her paired with?
Rather than Nami, because Nami's kind of chained to Lucian, it feels.
I think Janna Zeri can be a very strong combo. Janna is very good at making sure that Zeri lives for a long time, and is very good at just neutralizing lane and then also roaming around the map. I think Janna specifically as a roaming champion is very underrated. But into Nautilus, it's probably one of the roughest matchups you can have with a champion, and I'm just expecting the tank support coming in to counter the Nautilus.
Yeah, something along the lines of probably an there, I guess.
Alyssa Leona, right? What else?
Coming out. Braum could also work wonders up against the Jinx Corki, but no one's gonna play Braum. It's not aggressive enough. So there we are, Leona. And what are we rounding it out with? Probably a top laner. Safe options. I don't know what's really left available, especially with Graves gone. So you're kind of blinding a bit of a riskier pick. There's all the big blinds.
What? Okay. I was scared for a second.
Camille, I think overall, there are some counter picks to Camille you can definitely pick. I don't think there's something that completely destroys Camille to the point where she can't play the game. And it fits with the style of the team comp they have, right? They want to go in, they want to dive the enemy, they want to be really, really aggressive in that. And I think Camille really fits with the style of the team comp they already have. And I'm interested to see what the answer is. Not sure if Akali is the best one, but it is being picked up, and it is Hazmet Akali.
Yes,
so,
exactly. Yeah. When you see Akali on screen when Saigon Buffalo is playing, it's always the correct one, because it's Hazmet Akali. So, a little bit more traditional on the Saigon Buffalo side this time, maybe with the Corki. It's still 12.2, so not before the Corki package nerfs, so he should still be very high priority. Corki Jinx sounds amazing in teamfights later on already. And on the other side, we are relying on Yoshino Rice again, and of course, the Zeri for Slater. So, let's start with Marby. Which of the two compositions do you prefer?
I think Buffalo have put themselves in with a very strong range advantage and can absolutely play it out that way. That said, there isn't enough dive on Team Flash that Froggy might want to look to the other build, the shield bow. But overall, I think Buffalo have come away with a very good draft, so... and BNJ after that last performance, I can't bet against them.
Tim?
Yeah, I think I actually like Team Flash's draft. It has a clear identity. It's maybe not the safe long-range draft that we're used to, but it's definitely one with a good identity that is very clean, and all champions want to do the same thing. Zeri being a good diving AD carry, so I would say that Team Flash, especially with the mid jungle duo they have a good shot at just snowballing mid jungle and going for it, because this time Froggy will have even a harder time in lane and a harder time to match Jerome's.
Okay, that sounds like a Team Flash prediction, and with that, I give the huge honor to cast the very first VCS Zeri to Milky and Rebel. Take it away.
Thank you very much for that, Yulway. Now, we are jumping in for Game 2, and Rebel, we do have a Zeri. So, while I want to talk about Zeri, there's something else that I want to talk about first. And that's talking about our MVP from Game 1, BJ. Because in Game 1, he played a Lee Sin against Ikigai's Xin Zhao. Here for Game 2, the champions have been swapped around. So I want you to explain to me what we can expect from BJ now that he is on the other side of this matchup.
I think this is actually really cool to talk about, because now, in the previous game, it felt like there wasn't a bunch of perfect setup for Ikigai. And especially with the amount of skirmish power that was held from Saigon, there was never a position where it was like the Xin Zhao got to 1-on-1 against the other jungler, or got to 2-on-2 against the other jungler. It felt like there were, 3-4 members in every single fight, pretty much across the board. So in this game, we're hoping that Ikigai is able to do that. But we're right into the face of Slater to start things off.
Yeah, Taki starts it all off with a dredge line onto Slater, and then everyone just throws out some abilities, some basic attacks, and then they say, okay, guys, we've had our fun, let's go back to playing the game of League.
Yeah, so to return to this, I think importantly for BJ in this game is that the setup isn't quite there across the board. The best place you can go, of course, is alongside Taki. So again, to me, BJ Taki is the combination, or I know our desk talked about the jungle support combination. That's going to be really important, because right now, I mean, you're talking Akali has no CC to work with. Corki's got no CC without the package, I guess, but we're not going to count that all that much. So my expectation is that it's likely going to be a little bit more lax of a game from BJ, which opens up for Ikigai to show us what he's capable of doing, because now he's got the flip matchup. He's got good setup in pretty much every single lane to go ganking for. I think this is where really we need to see why Team Flash decided to throw this new jungler in when they kept the remaining players that were rookies from the previous split, in Marcus and in Artie. For some reason, they're not going back to Dante because of what they've seen in Ikigai, and I really hope he shows what he's been able to show at SEA Games, because he had some very solid performances at SEA Games.
I know our analysts were a little bit harsh on Ikigai's performance in Game 1, but I thought he played reasonably well. He was shadowing a lot of BJ's ganks and was present in some of those places. In the mid lane, Yoshino has already bullied Froggy out of lane. I think Yoshino's trying to set himself up as the new king of the mid lane in the VCS.
They've let him have Rise twice, which is a little shocking to me. I know there's other champions that potentially you need to ban out, but I feel like this is like the bread and butter Yoshino pick, just because of how much it's translated from his top pool into his mid pool very quickly. Looked great on it in the previous game as well. And Froggy has played exactly one game on this. Actually, we get a little bit of skirmish between BJ and Ikigai.
Well, the junglers are duking it out again. Now it's 2-on-1, and Hazmed can't really get into the action. First blood picked up for Ikigai. I guess it wasn't BJ being the better player. It's the matchup all along. Yoshino gets the kill onto Froggy. Taki just can't quite get there in time. Can't quite peel Yoshino away from Froggy. But now the question is, Yoshino, where are you going to go? Because sadly, Hazmed actually can't come down because Marcus has the lane shoved in. So Yoshino will be able to back out safely.
Is the reason why BJ also ends up losing that pure one-on-one up against Ikigai. Lee Sin's already powerful in the early game, but the fact that Marcus got first step towards BJ before Hazmed was really able to insert himself into that fight made it very difficult. Now, Marcus has put himself in this position, which is not a good one, where Hazmed's able to run him down, and there's no flash, and the hook shot's already down as well. Does Hazmed have the damage to wind up this fight?
It's got to be the solo kill. 5-point strike. Hazmed gets the kill. You don't disrespect this man, Zakali.
This is the timing in which Hazmed hopefully can show us what he's able to do in the top lane. We get a review of what happened in this mid lane. Froggy just got kind of pinched against the wall. The nice flash in an attempt to get away, but unfortunately just doesn't have the damage in this early game as the Corki up against Yoshino, who's able to run under the tower, not take any tower aggro, gets away from Taki all in one fell swoop. Again, the mid lane, last game, I don't think it was the pure one-on-one that really cost too much in terms of what Froggy was able to do, but this game already exerting the dominance is Yoshino. Previous game, it had a fantastic global impact, and now in this game, hopefully, you being able to express that inside the laning phase, push the Corki down a little bit in terms of his ability to kind of scale into the later phase if he's got this advantage.
Well, this is a nice wave pushing in towards the Team Flash tower, and Ikigai and Arte just waiting in the river brush, waiting for an opportunity to go in, but Taki will drop down a ward. It'll be instantly cleared by Arte, but the heist is up, the game is up for Team Flash there, and Ikigai's just going to have to walk on over towards the Drake.
It's a situation where Team Flash has actually given themselves a lot better way to try to combat early game, right? Like Ikigai with a lot of gank setup means that you can make an impact across the opposing lane. I know we talked about how bottom side isn't necessarily the greatest of places to end up, especially since like Zeri doesn't really have the pushing power of Shogun in the earlier phases of the laning phase. You can see a bit of actually trading onto Artie, and BJ's here to punish a little further.
Arte is so low, and it's just an easy pickup for the Saigon Buffalo jungler. And now Slater might actually have to be careful here because BJ could look to potentially dive. That being said, BJ is just going to head towards his jungle, pick up his Gromp.
Yeah, it's a place where Saigon is now punished on bottom side. I kind of expect them to do this more because, again, I want to see Taki broken out of bottom lane, but also this is the best place just to gank outright because you've got your Jinx down here. So it's one of the members that you really want to start putting gold into. You're comfortable with Hosmed in the one-on-one against Marcus here on this very comfortable champion of his. It's one of his best. I know our desk talked about that as well. Froggy hopefully is able to neutralize things on the Corki pick where he's just going to be like catching waves and Yashin is going to have more impact. You see that right here where he's going to walk up to BJ. Unfortunately, can't bring down that red ward, but it just doesn't matter that much. So my expectation is that BJ is going to find his way to the bottom side of the map far more often as this game continues. It's an attempt to further put Slater in a bit of a hole, or even better, to try to get Shogun on a bit of a jump here.
And we're actually seeing on the top lane the fact that Husman not too far behind Marcus's Camille in terms of CS, and especially when you consider how weak the Akali is in the first couple of levels. Oh, Taki misses the dredge line. Maybe this could be a window for Artie to look for a counter engage, but decides against it, and the two bottom laners will just stare each other out.
And I'm curious which of these teams believes that they will end up having a bit of an advantage in the later stage of the game when it comes to scaling. Because on one side, it feels like Team Flash has actually taken up more of the mantle of what we saw from Saigon, where their skirmishing and their engage is a lot, they get laid on a lot thicker, right? Because you've got Lee Sin to do it, you've got Camille to be able to do it. Ooh, actually, Ikigai right into the bottom side. They're going to find a pick.
Yeah, it's just an easy kill onto Taki. Arte with the Zenith Blade, and Ikigai not even needing to use the Dragon's Rage. Just a clean kill for Team Flash as they extend their goal lead a little bit further.
I was going to say, eventually I feel like Saigon's damage with the Corki and the Jinx is going to be high enough to where they should be able to express this range in pretty easy ways, even with all the engage, but they're not even going to let it happen because they're just going to dive immediately onto the bottom lane.
Well, the Spark Surge takes Slade under the tower, and sure, Cleanse can be dropped, but it does not matter. In the end, Arte is the one who secures the kill. And it's just a free kill, and it's going to be a fair few minions denied away from Shogun, and a couple of plates picked up for Slater.
Great beginning in the game here from the side of Team Flash, who were able to come out with what looks like a little bit better of a game plan. Because again, I was expecting for Saigon really heavily to lean towards this bottom side of the map after what we saw just a second ago with BJ, and after the fact that we have more pushing power with this Jinx, and we have to break out Taki to get some impact on the map. But here, I mean, obviously Team Flash, they kind of reverse Uno card them here, and now top lane a little bit more action. Here comes Yashino.
Well, the Hexic ultimatum, perfect execution from Hosmed, gets a 1-for-1, and Yoshino is just there like, come on, dude, come on.
He ends up getting a kill on the back of it, thankfully. But yeah, the trade of kills for Hosmed here in this top lane matchup looking a lot better than what we saw in the previous game. I feel like both top laners had like a good amount of impact that came in from the rest of their team, but we didn't get to see much of the pure one-on-one between the two of them that led to all that much. But in this game, we've already had 2 full-out skirmishes, or 3 full-out skirmishes, that have led to kills for one side or the other. So these two top laners definitely pulling a bit more of our attention in this game.
Okay, BJ and Taki. Well, Taki's waiting. Marcus is on his way up. This would be a 2v2 fight for the blue buff, but BJ and Taki are aware that Arte and Yoshino are roaming up from the mid lane, so they decide, you know what, we maybe shouldn't fight over this blue buff.
Interesting. We actually get a full-out swap from coming through from Saigon Buffalo. They decide to throw Shogun into the top side of the map, which is seen outright. They've got the Rift Herald in their back pocket, but they're sitting on a ward right now. And since Marcus is up here, he's got coverage from Artie. They could try to force...
No way! No way that dredge line just landed! Death charge on top. Marcus will fall! Taki, that was the best Nautilus hook I have seen in a long, long time.
The craziest part about this hook is not that it hits, because like it was an incredible hook on its own right.
Yeah.
I've seen hooks that do the same thing. The more incredible thing is that he's on vision.
Yeah.
Marcus had full vision of this Nautilus to pull him out of the brush, and he still gets hit in between minions. I'm not really sure how it actually turns out.
Honestly, I'm surprised Marcus hasn't thrown to a pause and asked for a Chrono break and said that Nautilus hitbox. Okay, right, I see what you're doing, but that one's not allowed. Now there's a Rift Herald being dropped in the top lane. Ikigai, Marcus teleporting up as well, but the Herald will charge, will give over Tower Plate Gold onto Shogun and BJ.
Kind of unfortunate. I was hoping they would press a little bit harder to try to get that third plate off the board to make sure that that was in the pockets of Shogun. But they do help recover a bit of gold into this bottom lane, which is helpful. Because again, they're trying to find somebody to put the gold into inside of this game, and Shogun appears to be the person that they're willing to lean towards, because Hosbin's been pretty self-reliant in this game, and things have cooled down between mid laners. Obviously, Yoshino's had a better effect, but that was going to happen after the early game that was so disastrous from Froggy. But at least keeping up to some extent in CS as like the 90 at this point. The Corki will eventually scale. It just stays Saigon trying to find ways to attack their side lanes while Froggy just waits for some of the itemization to come through. And thankfully, like Team Flash's responses have been decent as well, right? They're able to snag 2 dragons off the board. Iki guys found a couple of decent plays here and there to be able to reprieve some of the gold. This is a look back at that hook. This is I mean, getting it around that minion was difficult on its own right, but again, even Full saw him. This sets up this play so nicely, too, because if all 3 are here, the defense is there for the tower. They can't really prop down the Rift Herald because they probably end up losing it, or best case scenario, they have to 3-way split that goal between all the members, but instead, because they were able to like get that kill and put it onto Shogun, Shogun gets the kill gold, and he gets all that plate gold from the Rift Herald usage.
And I just want to go back to that play of Taki, because I feel the best way to describe it is it was an optimistic play by Taki, and Marcus literally just put himself on a platter. He stepped around the minion when he knew Taki was in the brush waiting. So I think a bit of a misplay from Marcus there, even if it was an incredible hook from Taki. But Team Flash, they still lead. They've got a 1-kill advantage. They've got 2 Drakes to nothing, and they've got a 1k goalie. So they are still in command of this game. But we have spoken about the scaling aspect of Saigon Buffalo. The Zakali, the Jinx, the Corki, all going to be monsters in the late game
My biggest question, I think, eventually comes down to how much Hosmet is going to be able to hunt the Zeri, because I think that's really the one responsibility for Hosmet in this game. And especially with Artie sitting around, I feel like Hosmet is making the right decision and not going for Tankakali, because I think if we're still on 12-2, they were still playing that champion pretty heavily, and even now, the champion is still usable when it comes to that build path. But in this case, having more of the AP and having more of the assassin-type build to come out from Hosmet makes, I think, a fair amount more sense against a champion like Zeri with the mobility that she's got, with everything that you need. You need to be able to put her down in a very swift to one clean cut type motion, which is what Hosmet's going to be going for. And especially after the laning phase we've seen, feels like Marcus really is kind of out of it, not really going to be able to compete too much against Hosmet Zakali in the later stage. They continue to lean against this off the other side of the map.
BJ's back just a little bit too early, and now it's a 3v2 in favor of a Team of Flash. 1 kill goes their way, and make it a double kill for Slader on this Zeri. And going to what you were talking about the later stages of this game, Saigon Buffalo will be wanting to get on top of Slader, and they've got a few tools to do so. They've got the Hextech Ultimatum, they've got the Leona, they've got the Dragon's Rage on this Lee Sin. But for me, who are you actually looking to focus down, lock down, kick away? Is it Hosmet on the Akali? Is it Froggy? Maybe Shogun?
When it comes for the full engagement, the best thing that you've got is to be able to kick back Taki into the rest of the team, because that's going to be the person sitting in front. You can see a situation here where he's trying to stand out in front of his ADC, but unfortunately can't really accomplish that feat. So to me, I think that's the best way to set up a team fight, is if you're able to kick one of the 2 frontliners, whether it's BJ or Taki, into one of the backliners like Froggy or Shogun, because that's how you're going to be able to set up more of the rest of the play. That's when Marcus can go in, that's when Yoshino can go in, that's when Artie can go in with more AoE type damage and bring down multiple members in one fell swoop. That's even where like Zeri can jump in, and all of a sudden, with the Trinity Force, with the Titanic Hydra, with like the ultimate coming in as well, all of that damage really starts to add together for the side of Team Flash, and it makes it so difficult for Saigon to respond to it, because it's such a quick, snappy thing. If you get kicked into your enemies as either BJ or Taki, and then you get CC layered right back on top of you, you basically die without having an impact in a fight.
Also just noticing Taki opting towards the Merc Treads, trying to deny some of the damage away from Yoshino, but I think more specifically try to reduce the length of the crowd control that Arte and maybe even Marcus have that they could be dropping on top of the Saigon Buffalo support.
Really possible. I'm looking at Saigon also lean towards this Rift Herald very heavily. They're trying to pull back gold to the best of their abilities. They've also they've got the package from Froggy, so this is a pretty decent cutoff angle. So I think they're willing to take this fight just because they've got that tool in their back pocket.
Solar has been used and will find nothing. Hasmed locked it down on the top of your screen, almost gets the kill. Tower shot coming in is huge. Arte low. Taki will fall as soon as he comes out of the stasis. Rift Herald has been secured, but Shogun has fallen, and this fight is all going the way of a team of Flash. Sure, Saigon Buffalo get the Rift Herald, but they get nothing more. Slater flashing forward, looking for the play onto Froggy, going under tower as well, and it forces a flash out of Froggy too. And overall, it's 4 kills for 1. Hasmed dying in the top lane. I think the Ignite picking up the kill for Marcus.
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly what it did, because I thought the Ignite had actually fallen off, and I don't know what little bit of tick damage ended up doing it, but Hasmed taking that last tower shot was more than enough damage to bring him down, and the rest of the fight kind of went disastrously. They don't really have much else in the way of gold to be able to compete in that 4-on-4 against Saigon or against Team Flash, and that means that Team Flash kind of walk out in a winning situation. Is not only do they get a big team fight win here off the back of the start of Artie, and then also Ikigai being able to get in and get some action, being able to kick back members. You can see Froggy basically gets dislodged from this fight. The front line starts going down. Shogun can't really step up into Slater and Yoshino because there's just too much damage, and no one's there to replace him. So yes, Rift Herald goes the way of Saigon, but Team Flash gets not only the team fight win, they end up pulling the Dragon, and this means that your team that has this big team fighting advantage when it comes to like the engage, they've got gold in the right places when it comes to your damage, and they're going to be able to force for like a soul point. I mean, all of a sudden, Team Flash is looking great in this game.
Well, they do find themselves with a 6,000 gold lead over Saigon Buffalo, and they have played proactively this game. Saigon Buffalo looking for these fights, starting up these fights. Don't forget, it was Taki's Dredge line that started off that last fight, and well, Saigon Buffalo not strong enough. A 6-0 Zeri for Slater. Surely right now, Saigon Buffalo just have to play, okay, we're sitting back, we're going to turtle, we're going to scale, we're going to get strong, and then we'll fight.
This game has felt much better from Team Flash because they've actually done things early to start setting up their members into the right place. Like in the previous game, it felt like Yoshino was really the only one that was accomplishing pretty much across the map. Yeah. Like Marcus was taking a bunch of early game damage, a bunch of early game ganks from the enemy team. That's caused quite a bit. Actually, Taki looking for an engagement in the mid lane.
It's a beautiful engager from Taki, and it's a clean shutdown onto Slater. They look for Artie as well. Artie will go gold, and do Saigon Buffalo look for more? Marcus, a body blocking the damage, doesn't land the hook shot onto the tower to escape, but it doesn't matter. He can walk out anyway. Now the Rift Herald has been dropped down. This is a huge pick for Saigon Buffalo, and I brought up the question, do they sit back? Do they turtle and scale? Well, no, they're going to find a pick. They're going to get a shutdown gold. They're going to get an outer tower, and now they're just going to keep on pushing down the mid lane.
Oh, Yasho can't even find a really big pick here. Instead, has to go back behind the tower. And that's going to give him 2 full objective bounties, as well as the towers in their back pocket and the shutdown onto Slater. It's a massive gold shift. This was 7,000 gold just moments ago, and it's been cut down to only 2.5 after just this one play. Saigon, again, one thing you cannot deny them for in this game, or at least this series, is that they haven't looked like they've been lost. Their divisiveness has definitely improved from what was the winter split, which seemed to be a weak point for them. So I have to give them a lot of really, really big props for being able to figure out that position. This game still is very rough for them because, again, there's so much engage, so much damage in the opposition. But right there, plays like that still give me hope that they understand what they're doing. They're still trying to work towards a win condition.
This is the VCS. Nothing is ever as it seems, and the game is never over until the fat lady sings. And sure, while Slater was a little bit fed and may have been a little bit fat, that was screaming of pain. Not quite singing just yet. However, Team Flash, as always, they lose something, they try to get something else, and now they're looking towards the top inner tower. They will be able to secure it as Slater drops down the ultimate, but I don't think we'll be able to make much out of this play, as Taki dredge lines to the inhibitor tower and out to safety, but that's an ult down for Team Flash.
Able to deny a fair amount, and it's good being able to actually kind of continue to push up these towers, especially on the Baron side, because this is where Team Flash, I think, they're really going to be able to find their marks. Before Froggy ends up getting on the third item, right now he just finished the second, so he's got the loot-ins completed. The poke isn't still quite there, especially because Hazmat also only on 1.5 items right now, comparatively to anybody else in the other team, where you're on like 2-3 item mark is starting to get encroached upon for Zeri. And that means that team fighting for Team Flash is great. So if they're able to kind of leverage that into a Baron take, they can use that to snag soul point. There's plenty of things to actually accomplish. They find another bit of play onto Artie.
Good solar flare being knocked down, and Shogun is delivered into the team, but Shogun is still alive. Shogun is still shooting. He's in the Hextech ultimatum. He will fall eventually. Hazmat into the back line, gets the kill. However, Hazmat now in a tricky situation and will be taken down after he gets a kill on to the Zeri. Burst fire being dropped down onto BJ. Another kill for Team Flash. Taki trying to dredge line his way out to safety, but Slater trying to close it in. A good phosphorus bomb from Froggy, and Taki will just have to sacrifice his life. Yoshino on a bit of a hunt, but a blast cone should be enough to take Froggy out to safety. Look at that movement speed for the Rise, but Froggy is out to safety.
Yes, this does open up in 36 seconds what will be a redeploy from Team Flash that should set them up for a Cloud Soul. It's got a ton of just immediate value for a team like this. Wait, what happened? The rocket! No way! Shogun found Zeri!
That's massive.
That's huge! That means they can shut out Soul Point. I mean, I was about to say, like, Cloud Soul gives you a bunch of flat stats that are going to be super useful, especially for, like, the Zeri, who already is impossible to lock down, and this team doesn't have the greatest kind of point-and-click CC outside of, like, Taki's ultimate, but that pushes them out. That might deny this.
However, Shogun trying to rush his way to the Drake gets caught out. Good setup from Team Flash, but Saigon Buffalo aren't done yet. They say, okay, you kill our ADC, we will get vengeance. They force Team Flash out of the river. Could they look to rush down the Drake? Slater is already back up. Artie now coming in on the flank as Yoshino is trying to back away. Dredgeline somehow doesn't land onto Artie, but the Solar Flare does. So does the Zenith Blade, but there is no follow-up from the side of Team Flash, and Artie will get taken down. And the rest of the members of Team Flash in a bit of a sticky situation. But look at Slater, slowly making his way in. Has the Lightning Crash available. Both junglers up and alive as well.
The loss of Shogun right there was also equally massive for the side of Team Flash, just because they were able to get their way into the pit. And because Yoshino can teleport back, that means he gets a full reset. It's a 4-on-4, but the ADC is available for Team Flash. It makes it so much harder for Saigon to accomplish anything since Hazmat's ult is down.
Here we go then. The Drake has been secured by Team Flash. Hextech Ultimatum will lock it down. BJ. Shogun will be here in a few seconds' time. Marcus is already practically dead and out of this fight. BJ and Hazmat tanking up as much damage as they can. But Shogun is now here. Artie making his way in through the bottom lane, but he's going to take a while yet. Taki locking down Slater, and Slater will fall. The Zeri is out. Zap onto Yoshino. Yoshino goes golden. He's going to be able to find one kill, but he'll come out of things. He'll die, but he's able to get the one kill onto Froggy before he falls. It's a triple kill for Yoshino, but he is now dead. Ikigai still alive. Artie here. Teleport coming through. Shogun on the run, and his Team Flash who come out of the fight on top. How? I don't know. Shogun with nowhere to go. Shogun will be sent back to the base. Tries to throw out the rockets. Tries to get the kill onto Ikigai, but is unsuccessful. And it is Team Flash who get the ace for 2. Team Flash can turn towards the Baron Nashor.
Team Flash are able to buy so much time. The kill onto Zeri was massive for Saigon Buffalo, because I thought that meant they were going to be able to capture the river, be able to capture pretty much anything they want. But unfortunately, the loss of Shogun, because he gets too antsy, ends up costing them, and then they can't capitalize fast enough. They were probably looking to go for a full 4-on-4 engagement before a 4-on-3, 3-on-3, whatever the situation was, for Saigon to be able to force into Team Flash to look to win that. But unfortunately, it's just not enough. Now, BJ does make it back quick enough. Marcus is going to try to keep him out of the pit, but the reinforcements are here for Saigon Buffalo. They might be able to stall this Baron.
BJ is so incredibly low, but Marcus has already been taken down, and now it would be a 4-on-4. And Team Flash are forced away from the Baron, and Saigon Buffalo are going to say, no, we don't want to let the Baron reset. We want to start it ourselves, but Baron doesn't care. Baron resets nonetheless. Saigon Buffalo could start it anyway. Marcus is down. No teleport available. All the members of Saigon Buffalo are alive, but the lockdown is dropped onto the Taki. He'll use the dredge line, able to get out. Blast Cone from Slater, taking him in. Super Mega Death Rocket. Artie able to sidestep it at the last second. Now Hazmat going in, looking for Ikigai, but your focus needs to be on Slater. It needs to be on Yoshino. Saigon Buffalo back away from the Nashor, and neither team will be able to pick up the objective.
it's such a close game right now between the two of these teams because there's so much pick potential on either side. There's a good amount of range on Saigon versus the amount of ability to engage here. This is all the way back. I love this replay. Thank you so much. I've had my criticisms of replays, but this is about as good as one as you could ever ask for because that's the rocket on Nazeri that set this whole last 3 minutes up. That was a play that I thought Saigon was going to be able to leverage into a much better situation. They've been able to keep the gold lead down to 3.3 thousand. Right now, Team Flash is looking for a way to kind of put themselves in a position where they completely control Elder Drake. 3 minutes from now, this game starts to get way more interesting because of what happens. Taki, though, way out of
Well, the
position.
lightning crash has already been dropped down, and Slater has the attack speed, gets the kill onto Taki, jumping over the wall, now looks for BJ. You talked about the Elder, we might even not get that, because Team Flash have already found 2 kills. They look for Froggy, he's able to Valkyrie his way out to safety, but Shogun's on the wrong side of the map, and Shogun will get taken down. Ikigai picks up the kill, it's now a 5v2. Team Flash don't look to end, instead they will turn towards the Baron. They don't think they can end just yet, and we talked about Saigon Buffalo scaling. You brought up the fact of the Elder Rebel, and there's not much time left for Saigon to scale because they need to win a fight and they need to win it soon.
This is disastrous. This is a setup where Team Flash, they get not only multiple kills and multiple picks, but the Baron buff is humongous. 2.5 minutes out from this Elder Drake spawning means it's going to be near impossible for Saigon Buffalo to push out their mid lane and their bot lane to be able to contest. You can see Hosmet's trying to get a jump on that right now to the best of his extent, but it's just not going to be enough because 2 minutes here, that's going to be more than enough time for Team Flash to push down mid, probably get mid inner or bottom inner from the side of Saigon before just doubling back and going to the Elder Dragon and then making a massive base push all together is one. It's going to be all that is necessary for the side of Team Flash if they're able to operate on it. Somehow Saigon need to jump that timer. They need to find a way to get 2 members down on the side of Team Flash so that they can contest the Elder Drake so that they've got control of that pit in only 1.5 minutes time. I don't know how they're going to do it. It's got to be Taki Hook. It's got to be Hosmet finding an individual outplay because if it's not one of those things, Team Flash walks out and we go to a game 3.
Game 3 on the horizon for the team that only won a single series last split. What a turnaround in performance for both Saigon Buffalo and Team Flash. They have looked so much better than they did just a few months ago. Maybe, dare I say, Team Flash could even be seeing playoffs. And here is how this previous fight all kicked off.
Big engagement from Slater combined with more movement again from Ikigai, who was able to find a nice angle right here. And they force their way onto BJ. Honestly, this entire play doesn't even matter. As long as BJ is able to go down during the course of this, they just get the jungler and the Baron buff sets up the rest of this play. The fact that they got Taki and Shogun on top of it was just, it's kind of icing on the cake at that point for the side of Team Flash. But you can see that they're using this Baron buff to the best of its abilities. They already cracked both inner towers, and now they're working towards inhibitor towers, only 50 seconds out from the next dragon, which of course is that Elder Drake that's going to be so impactful. This is where Saigon could try to find something. They got a package from Froggy. Can they get a fight?
Saigon Buffalo don't back down from the fight, but Taki is already down. The package has been dropped, but Froggy is down as well. Everyone from Saigon Buffalo is dropping like flies. BJ will fall as well. It's a 3v1. Hosman with a hero play. What can he do? He wants to get Yoshino. Perfect execution, but he doesn't have the damage. He goes golden, and he's still 3-on-1. Hook shot in. Hosman locked down. Hosman trying to get away. Sonic Wave resonating strike picks up the kill. Yoshino backs, teleports back in. Team Flash with 3 members alive, with the 2 Baron empowered waves are crashing onto the Nexus towers, and with a few more seconds for the Saigon Buffalo members to respawn, they won't respawn in time, and Team Flash will take us to our first game 3 of the split.
Off the back of a couple of performances, first off, Yoshino's had some really great performances already in this split and doing much better in the mid lane than we had seen previously. But the fact that Ikigai gets to come out in a game like this, gets to have a lot more impact, shows off a little bit of what I was seeing in C games. I'm really happy to see that after the first game where he was really quiet, didn't do much, was able to put so much more pressure onto the side of Saigon in this game, was a lot bigger than we had seen. And then also, how about Slater? Probably stepping back in, right? He was a top 3 ADC, top 2 ADC probably at one point, and that was a performance far more beginning of what we had seen from him in the past. The Zeri, you can't let it through a second time. It's just not happen. Champion was way too good. They played to it really well, and it set Team Flash up for a massive play.
Absolutely love the game, and I think these two teams have looked so good. I don't quite think they're in the same level as Cerberus and Gam. I think there have been moments where players have been caught out being a bit too aggressive, not respecting the fact, okay, we need a bit of time between fights, but a fantastic game nonetheless. What we're going to do is we're going to head to a break, and then we'll be back with our analyst desk, maybe a very meek looking analyst desk, because I heard a lot of criticism about Ikigai in game 1, and now I'm seeing a lot of praise for Ikigai in game 2. Stay tuned, we'll be back shortly here at the VCS English.
Welcome back. We are looking at a 1-1 scoreline. Not going to get away with another 2-0 today, and I'm very excited about this because both of these teams have shown us glimpses of good play, of bad play. It's very exciting. We ended up with something like 50 kills, so right back where we all want to be with the VCS. Let's start with you, Marby. Impressions from Game 2. We finally saw some Zeri. We saw Corky for SGB, or maybe we didn't. I think we all hope we didn't. We hoped we didn't see that because, well.
Yeah, Corky. I mean, yeah, bringing up Corky means he has more presence on the desk than he has in game, but there we are. Not great, not great. Getting solo killed by the Rise is not how that's meant to go. You're meant to get out-roamed and out-shoved, sure, but not killed. Meanwhile, the Zeri, I think overall we just kind of saw how Flash gets to play when their jungler isn't completely removed from the game by BJ. Ikigai didn't really have much of a chance at that first game, but this time he actually he was able to make things happen on the map, get things going. And overall, the team played very well. The carry stepped up very massively. Marcus, despite getting bullied around, did find that really clutch hook shot onto the Jinx around that soul point, which completely undid that rocket snipe, and saves that game from potentially spiraling the other way. But as is, very good stuff from Flash. Very, very good to see them step up and actually get to play as a 5-man unit.
Yeah, I think generally we saw more of a Flash in half 2 of the winter split, where they came back revitalized, still with some woes in the laning phase, but much more synergy, much more togetherness in their way to approach plays and so on. A lot of aggression as well, so I like to see that a lot. But we have to address the MVP of this game. We talked about Ikigai already. He was definitely a standard player, but even better than him, gapping lane 2 games in a row on the Rise. Tim, walk me through Yoshino's performance. He's a top laner, remember? He's not supposed to be this good in mid lane. Why is he putting on such a show today on this champion?
I'm really interested to see how Yoshino's gonna play in the upcoming games. Not even the next one, but also the other series. How he stacks up against the other mid laners, because so far he has only shown us the Rise, and he's very good on that champion. Also his team fight presence. I think there was the one fight at Drake where it was at 200 HP, still took 3 kills, which was absolutely insane. And he was of course gapping Froggy in lane both times, but both times Froggy kind of picked bad champions into him, counter-picked himself, and Froggy already is not a very good laner. He hasn't been last split either. He's probably one of the weakest mid laners,
for sure,
just laning wise and in the 1v1. And I think Yoshino is massively abusing that. But I'm really interested to see what Yoshino can do on other mid laners and against laners who are better in lane, because I think that is a big question for him to answer. Okay, you can clap Froggy. Can you do it against a real mid laner as well?
Anything,
yes.
Chad? Sorry.
I do want to see Yoshino show us something else that isn't the Rise, because it's tank Rise over and over and over again. Sure, it's been working great so far, but as Tim said, you've been kind of aided a lot by Froggy's picks and Froggy's lane in general. I want to see something. I don't know if you're willing to invest a ban into what is Rise, because Rise isn't that strong by itself, but it might be worth it just to hit Flash.
And Zeri's out, boys.
Yeah,
it's not gonna later in Zeri again.
Unfortunately, I actually wanted to bring up the Zeri point in Slater, but that has to wait for the next series, hopefully with you on again, Tim. If you're not on, then we're just going to steal your point.
But it is what it is. And Rice is taken out as well. So 2 hyper impact champions from last series being taken out, and
What is the draw?
Guys, what is happening?
I'm just trying to remember what they dropped for Rise. Sorry.
Oh, okay. I was just going a bit confused, but
Oh, Aphelios, of course.
oh yeah, I forget as well. But no Thresh, so he has to find a different lane partner. Should of course be something aggressive. Or the Lulu that is also open. I think it was at least banned once in first rotation and once in second rotation. To all in this series. So let's see what TF's answer is and what Yoshino is going to play this series or this game.
Yeah, I think we're gonna just see a very standard sort of start with the jungle, probably a Jinx as well, just standard sort of not you don't really show anything. Could see one of those sort of flex picks. Grabbing the Lulu early is also a very good idea. Just you deny from the Aphelios, and you can always grab that Jinx third. It's not like they're gonna steal it away from you. There are a few top laners that have made their way into the mid lane to touch on before, so we could see something like that Tryndamere mid if the matchup calls for it. But yeah, Yoshino, come show us something else.
Tahm Kench. Huh?
That is probably support Tahm Kench into the Lulu. I actually have some experience with the matchup. Well, Lulu, of course, can poke out the Tahm Kench if it should be going towards that support position. She's always under threat because if she walks up for auto attacks, she's in Q range. And if she gets hit by Q, she can't basically dodge W. And then she's basically one-shot. Yep. Yeah, and so it's a risky matchup for Lulu to play aggressive in. And with the Vex together, you already have a very good engage comp on your hands.
And I wanted to ask you about maybe a more spicy ADC pick, but it seems like that is not going to be the case here. Thought about maybe Cockmore into this, but nope. We are back to Jinx. Jinx, Lulu, of course. Very strong late game team fighting. And we have ADC support in jungle on Flash's side, and mid lane and bot lane for Saigon Buffalo's side. So we might see a little bit of jungle focus bans from Flash and a little bit of mid focus bans for Buffalo. But instead it's going to be a Akali bent away from Hasmit. So what are we looking at for round 2? Let's start with you, Molly.
I wouldn't be surprised to see a bit of a Lee Sin ban as the bans reset for a little bit. But yeah, let's see Akali. I wouldn't be shocked to see a Lee Sin or something along those lines. Force BJ onto either like the Viego or the Jarvan as those like high priority picks, but could see BJ sort of reach deeper and go for something like the Kayn, things like that, things that he likes to play. In the top side, I think they're going to try and see and hope Marcus gets that first pick in, and as the counter pick comes for mid lane. But
Diana banned.
Okay.
Wait, why are they banning? Are they expecting Vex support? Are they expecting Vex Diana as a combo?
It's weird. I don't like that. I don't like that at all.
What? No, this is. I mean, the Lee Sin ban. I really would have been on board with the Lee Sin ban. Honestly, just take that away from BJ. He has been so good in a champion, and both Lee Sins have actually won the matchup, even though both sides opted for the Xin Zhao over Lee Sin in both games. So very interested to see how that plays out, because I'm expecting BJ to go towards Lee Sin once again.
Oh, it's certainly available for him here, and that's rather surprising after his first game performance. There's a Galio insta-locked, so that's going to be Yoshino's option number 2 after Rice. A little bit more utility focused maybe, also quite strong at roaming, but not quite as strong as a carry threat, so more honest and Slater to perform later on in the team, and R5 for Marcus.
Yeah, I think R5 you're going to be looking for something like that, Jace, or not. Well, if the Tryndamere is going to be locked in for Hasmit, that reduces your options by quite a bit. We have seen the Camille really take it to the thing before, the trend before, so that is an option for Marcus. He played an okay game of it last time, but instead,
but Jax can also be very good, and is another carry threat for your team. I think if you want to be really big brain here, you put Arthur on Galio and you put the Lulu in mid lane into Vex, because I don't think Vex can actually do anything or move the Lulu at all. And on the other hand, the Tahm Kench can't really move the Galio, but it looks like it is the Lulu bot lane and the Galio in the effect.
What do we think of Camille into Tryndamere? The one time I saw it in the C9 game, I believe. The Camille got stopped.
Yeah. Yesterday we saw the Camille stomp the Tryndamere, and I think if you get a bit of a lead on the Camille, you can sort of get the option to trade very short windows and sort of make the and makes it uncertain on when the Tryndamere wants to use his ult, because he doesn't know when the full all-in is coming through. And also, as it goes on, you're looking for that Camille Galio synergy, I think, is the big reason they picked that overall over something like a Jax.
But then again, you have Tahm Kench into that. So Tahm Kench is very good at defending, because the target you want to go on, of course, I think is Aphelios in this draft. But if Aphelios gets Camille ulted, the Tahm Kench just eats him, and then he's safe at least for a certain duration, then gets a huge shield. And even if Tahm Kench then gets comboed and dies, well, your Tahm Kench sacrificed himself for the main engage combo of your opponent. So I think that is something to look out for, is how good can Taki really protect his Aphelios, because Aphelios Tahm Kench can be a very, very strong late game lane, similar to what Lulu Jinx can bring.
Okay, so I need your predictions for last time this series. We have another one coming later, but now, both of these teams were a disappointment last split, I should say. Now they have the opportunity to start on a win, so who's gonna take it, Marby?
I think overall I like Flash's comp more, but looking at that top matchup and the skill matchup there, I think Harsman's gonna run away with Trend.
Okay. Tim, do you agree?
Yep, I agree. I think
SGB.
top lane will be an issue, and Yoshino doesn't have a carry champion.
Okay, 2 SGB predictions, and it's back to our casters. Milky and Rebel, for the last time today, take it away.
2 predictions for Saigon Buffalo, and maybe Saigon Buffalo with 2 game wins in this series. Of course, we'll find out the answer to that in the next half an hour or so, or maybe Rebel will get a 1 hour long bloodbath. We haven't had one of those in a long time.
Yeah, I could do with a 60-minute bloodbath here in the VCS. I think that would spice up this week quite a bit. It'd be a funny, entertaining experience for you. I know you have to cast after this as well, so I'm sure your voice would like a little bit of warm up for whatever you're about to go do.
Man, I've got 3 best of 3 series to cast today. It's going to be a fun one, and then I've got 2 more best of 3s to cast tomorrow as well. So, if anyone would like to attend the funeral of my vocal cords, I'll link that in Twitter at some point. But we are seeing both junglers heading in, starting on the bottom side of the map. Interestingly, BJ not opting for the Lee Sin. It was available, but Saigon Buffalo have decided we are going to put BJ on the Viego. And in terms of what a Viego can do compared to a Lee Sin, I'd say it can directly carry a game a lot more if BJ performs well.
Yeah, we talked about this yesterday inside of the VCS, this being a pretty slow pick comparative to something like the Lee Sin, which can accelerate a lot faster. And Saigon's laning hasn't been particularly enticing. I know last game there were some fun plays from the Akali, but ultimately it feels like they've been outclassed for both Hosmed and for Froggy in both their top and mid lanes. So to me, at least, this is a bit of an interesting one, because I feel like BJ would probably feel better, or I guess Saigon would probably feel better with something that facilitates a bit better, like the Lee Sin or something else like akin to the Lee Sin that would have that accomplishment. But clearly they think very differently, because obviously they're willing to put BJ out a bit more of a carry. He's been having a standout series so far, so maybe they're putting some more trust into him being able to carry the team.
Now, I do really like this Saigon Buffalo composition, but I think the one thing that stands out to me is it doesn't really sit in terms of what we expect from VCS teams in terms of their playstyle. Usually when we see VCS teams, a lot of skirmishing. And here is our first little skirmish, or I guess you could call it a gank. Hook shot, Marcus Izzy out, flash forward from Harsmed. 1 auto, not quite enough. Harsmed will tank 2 tower shots and will die in the process. So it's a 1-for-1 overall. But critically, first blood goes to the Saigon Buffalo top laner.
Wow, Marcus holds the ignite, drops it onto Hosmed right before he gets out from underneath the tower, and it prevents that Q from giving him anywhere near enough health to survive that last auto or that last tower shot from coming through. So it does end up just being the 1-for-1. Good early pressure from BJ, because it's not very often that you're going to be able to find something like that. But understanding that Marcus without flash doesn't have a bunch of escape means outside of the hook shot, especially when Hosmed has the flash and the ghosts to work with, they understand what is going on. And especially if you get the Tryndamere ahead, I think this laning phase gets a lot more insufferable for the Camille, because eventually it's just, if you go into an auto-attacking battle up against a Tryndamere, you're eventually just going to lose most of the time. So I feel as though that's what they're going to be banking on. Hosmed didn't lose much of his wave, which is also quite nice, because he's going to be able to step right back into this and snag as much as he can. But Ikigai now gets his chance to make an impact on the top side, which will feel far more impactful against Hosmed, just because he's going to lose a fair amount of this crashing wave if he goes down.
I do want to touch back onto the point that I was previously trying to make, which is this composition from Saigon Buffalo doesn't... Again, we got another fight, and it's Froggy picking up the solo kill on to Yoshino. Now a dive on the top side of the map. I'll never be able to make my point. I'll let it drop. Dive onto Harsmed. They get the kill, and this time there will be a fair bit of CS being lost by this Tryndamere.
A bit of the sacrifice here. There's no coverage for top side. BJ is on bottom side, and there's a solo kill in mid lane, so Ikigai just feels completely comfortable going for a dive, because there's also no teleport on Froggy to really make anything happen, but underneath the bottom tower...
Abyssal Dive gets a knock-up onto Slater. Slater trying to sidestep the Spectral more, but the damage comes through nonetheless. As that being dropped down, Arte, the shield is massive. The tower shots isn't enough. Shogun just needs one more auto. Arte doesn't know where to go. Taki is just watching him the entire way, gets the knock-up. Shogun picks up the kill. 2-0 on the Aphelios.
What a dive on the bottom side, because they end up sacrificing the life of BJ for everything to work out. This is a solo kill in the mid lane, which is a little bit shocking because Yoshino the last few games has really been flexing on Froggy in the laning phase. This is the first time. I love the Vex pick for Froggy. I thought it was going to be something huge. He's going to pick up and be a master at pretty much immediately. So hopefully this split shows a little bit more of it. That right there, the adaptive shield was really helpful for denying a bit of the trade damage, because even just a 1-2 auto attacks from Hosmet probably would have made the difference of the kill onto Marcus right there. And then of course the bottom dive, again, BJ going down in exchange to make sure the Shogun gets a bit more. We get to see the remainder of that play. I really loved Taki taking one more tower shot with that little gray health shield that he was able to snag, because yes, it did cost BJ's life, but that one tower shot would have made the difference between Shogun starting to tank tower, especially with the incoming Yoshino, would have made a massive difference.
Okay, Shadow Surge has been dropped by Froggy onto Yoshino, but nothing will come of it. In fact, Team Flash, it still have priority in the river. Do Saigon Buffalo look to contest? Taki is not looking the healthiest of Toads right now, and Team Flash will be able to secure the first Drake of the game.
I think they're okay with that. They're more akin to a gold lead. Hosmet's only level 5. He's going down to Marcus. Oh, he gets out. Oh, no.
Predicts a sidestep. Harsmed falls. Marcus at 2-1. Harsmed 1-3. This matchup is Camille favored, if I can trust U.GG. Sometimes it gives them weird matchup predictions.
You can't, but that's not the point. In this particular game, what's nice about this for Marcus is that the first kill gets traded back and forth. They get a second one in between him and Ikigai, and this was a great capitalization of the experience difference that he was able to have. Again, that wave that got crashed underneath the tower, while yes, some of that got shared by Ikigai, the kill was enough to get Marcus into a very positive situation where right now, level 7 to level 5, Husband's got to be really close to that level 6, but that level of experience that Marcus was able to capitalize on. How about the youngster? His second split wasn't a full-time starter in the previous one, flexing against one of the better top laners that we have. We always laud Hosmed for being this really talented top laner and having a lot of really positive play, even when his team is not doing well. But in this series, Marcus really has been the better of the two.
Mark has been performing admirably well so far. Also, Rebel, are you sitting down?
Yes.
Froggy has a CS lead.
I told you, man, if you leave him alone and he gets to play out his laning phase normally, he's not a bad mid laner. He's a good mid laner. In the last split, there was so much talk about this. I talked about it all the time. When they just decided to consistently put him on Galio and just say, okay, go to every skirmish, things were problematic, which is why I love the Vex, because Vex has so many ways to control a wave, and the ultimate lets you have more impact inside of skirmishes and stuff. And then, of course, I think Yoshino looks a lot more uncomfortable on this Galio than the Rise, significantly. Not to mention, this is like, in terms of the lane, Galio basically has absolutely nothing against the Vex as a second solo bolo for the boy in the mid lane. Froggy flexing right now.
It's time to uninhibit the ribbit. Ikigai looking for the play. Super Mega Death Rock is going to take Froggy alone. There is nothing Froggy can do here. Or is there? He's dropping the thumbs up. He's dropping the BM. Artie is coming up as well, but Froggy will fall. Artie gets the kill. I thought Artie was out of range there, so I'm not quite sure how he got that one. But either way, Artie gets the gold into his pockets. I don't know if that was a shutdown.
I don't think it was, because I don't think he was out of combat long enough to end up being a shutdown, which is kind of nice. The first two games, Yoshino was really doing it to Froggy, so it has to feel nice for Froggy to be able to just jump in on top of a Galio, pretty much underneath his tower, to find kills like that. Look at that! This isn't Froggy! Like, when did Yano get subbed in for Saigon Buffalo?
Ruby's
What is
back
this?
in.
Yeah, Ruby's okay. All right, disrespectful. That's crossing a line that we don't need to cross, Milky.
I was just trying to think who's the only other mid laner that I know plays for Zygo Buffalo. I was like, it was Ruby, I'm pretty sure. I'll just throw that name in. I never actually got to cast on Ruby playing back in the spring split. But we do have a Rift Herald being picked up by Team Flash. And this game is still relatively close. 5 kills to 5, barely any goal between the two sides. And it's looking very reminiscent of what we saw in Game 2.
Biggest thing is that right now Marcus has this big advantage over Hazmed, and that's not going to go away pretty much anytime soon. This means that Marcus, when you combine him with the Galio, I mean, this is like a pretty old school combination inside the VCS to throw Camille Galio in. I know Team Secret was big on this alongside the Nocturne. Like the Galio delivery system was like all Team Secret. So Flash being able to bring back a little bit of that. Taki comes to top lane to help out his top laner a little bit. Not likely to find anything aggressive against Marcus. But the big thing is your bottom side has been set up to great success, right? Shogun's up 2 kills, has a little bit of a CS lead. Froggy's humongous right now on the Vex, especially against a pretty weak Galio. They're in a good place on the bottom side. It's just about getting this top side back in place.
There's a delivery system that we talked about, that you talked about, Revel, the Camille Galio combination. Hazmed uses the Undying Rage. Shadow Surge comes in. Hazmed will be able to survive, but Froggy and BJ are here to pick up a kill. It makes it a 1-for-1 overall, but BJ not done yet. Uses the Heartbreaker. Can't close in onto Marcus, but they could look for Yoshino. Shadow Surge goes wide, but Yoshino, where are you going to go? Arte cut off from this fight, and it's just going to be the dive under tower. The Wild Growth buying so much time. Tower shot not enough to kill BJ. Arte incredibly low, still alive. Marcus joining into the fray. Hookshot comes in, picks up an easy kill onto BJ. Now looks for more, looking for Froggy, but Froggy still so healthy. Marcus incredibly low. Arte and Marcus under the tower, and there is a huge minion wave there as well. Froggy not done, neither is Hazmed, and Taki here too. Has the Devour available, jumps in, Ignite ticking down onto Marcus. Arte still alive as well, but no further kills come through. And guess what, Revel? We're still tied 7 kills to 7.
That we are. And the bottom side, Team Flash has gone after the Dragon, which is Ikigai, who has just been focusing on making sure that some of these objectives are going to the way of Team Flash in exchange for some of the plays across the map that Saigon is using in its attempts to get their players into the game like this, right? The gold advantage is not anywhere near what it needs to be for Saigon with these objectives traded. Maybe this is a bit of a change because Hazmed, if he gets his ultimate back up, has a legitimate threat to Marcus and Artie. At minimum, they're going to have to back, and they're not going to be able to come back with the TP. So Hazmed should have some free time on this tower. But it appears to be that's what Saigon really wants to go for. They lost the Rift Herald to Ikigai in the midst of all of that kind of pressure, and they lost 2 dragons. But they're really looking to get their characters into a place where the gold is going to feel good. The Aphelios wants to be able to team fight. Vex is already on the Ludens. It has looked great in the course of this game. BJ is also punishing. He's a Kraken Slayer of Viego in this game.
Okay, VCS teams, can you have a bit of respect? Because Rebel's trying to make some good analytical points here, and you guys keep interrupting him. Yoshino almost dying. This is aggressive because he gets hit by 1 Mistral Ball from Froggy. He could die. And now Ikigai looking towards the bottom lane, but Taki is here as well. Who is stuck in with who? It's looking like Saigon Buffalo want to be starting up the play. The Crescent Guard has been dropped, which means that Shogun can't quite get as much damage down as he would like. Misses the Moonlight Vigil as Arte and BJ looking to join into the fray as well to make this a 3v3. Shogun's going to cancel his back as well, but Taki, so incredibly low, is forced to return to his fountain.
That's Ikigai trying to force something onto the bottom side, try to help out Slater and Artie a little bit more, and they're going to be able to probably crack this tower even without the usage of, or actually the Rift Herald was already used to be able to help crack the bottom tower, but that is going to be the bottom tower cracked completely for Slater, which puts their Jinx in a very nice position in this game. The trade-off, of course, is that, like, so far your mid lane has kind of just been bullied pretty much entirely. Your top lane is slowly, they're both going up in gold, which eventually, again, Tryndamere is going to feel fine into this, but it's still a ways out just because of how powerful that Marcus is. But this is the trade-off, right? It's like you could continue to lean into your Camille and attempt to really focus into Ikigai and Marcus and the delivery system of Galio, or you could put your team fight together by getting gold into Slater. And they've really shifted into Slater, getting more of this tower gold. I want to see them move him almost to top side and try to punish this top lane tower a little bit further. Let the Camille have this long lane against the Tryndamere to continue punishing him with.
Hats off to Shogun there, because he held on to the flash when Ikigai showed up. That is bravery and that is confidence in your own ability. That little sidestep off the Windy Comes Lightning. Meanwhile, in the top lane, Harsmed's very low, and he does get the Undying Rage available, and now the Hero's Assurance drops in, and BJ will fall as well. Harsmed disrespecting the damage of Marcus, and that has to be possibly the biggest oopsie we've had this split so far.
Harsmed, what is happening today, my man? It has not looked like this is not a Harsmed day. This has not been a very good showing. Anybody watching, this is not what he usually looks like. He's usually very good. But Marcus has been incredible over the last couple of games. That right there was another indication of it, because Harsmed trying to hold the ultimate as long as he can. But again, this is a Divine Sunder. It was a charged Q. You had so much burst damage. It's a massive amount of damage that's going to be dropped into Harsmed, just not expecting it apparently. But I feel like that should have been something he should have popped well before that fight had even started, or well before that auto could have ever gone off. But unfortunately, he just gets caught completely off guard by it, ends up costing that entire play. And then the worst part, kind of just to add insult to injury, it was Yoshino jumping in on that play just to punish BJ a little bit further and put him into a little bit of a hole. And this is the trade-off once again. I kind of don't want to watch this. This feels really bad for us, man. There was the empowered Q. Oh, I thought it was an empower key that killed him. He just autoed him to death. What happened? Harsmed, press your ultimate key.
Maybe his R key broke.
Maybe.
Okay, right. So we're at this stage in the game where I need to bring up one very important point, because Rebel, sometimes we're in sync and we've got, the same vision. And I like to make sweeping statements. Now, when we made our predictions as to how this split would go, we both put Saigon Buffalo as the third best team, and we both expected Team Flash to be the worst team. Having seen 2.5 games, where do we want to put Team Flash now, as Marcus is just going to bully Harsmed? We'll ignore that.
Oh, actually, we'll see. Harsmed's got some damage. Okay,
he's not
never
killing
mind.
Marcus.
Doesn't matter. The last little bit there, I was thinking an E would come out, and he drops an auto attack, and that's going to cost him Silver Sword Imperial. That's an interesting, I guess, philosophical dilemma here, just because we have no basis by which we understand Saigon or we understand Team Flash at this point. All we've had is SEA games, but I don't think those are purely indicative of how the split is going to go, because if that's to say anything, right now Saigon is on the level of GAM, because they went 1-1 against each other and beat every other team inside of SEA games, so like they should be tied for top of the table, even above Cerberus at this point. So Team Flash, I think they're performing very admirably. Their prospects are definitely going up. I don't think they necessarily look like the bottom team after what we saw yesterday. It's, to me, more of a question of how good is Saigon, because if Saigon is still sitting as our 5th best team, this doesn't actually mean that much for Team Flash. But if they're sitting as our 3rd best team, this is a lot more impactful. So I think we need a little more context, just because I'm not sure. From what I've seen today, both these teams look good, but there have been plenty of mistakes from both sides. Specifically, Saigon, I think, have made some really crucial errors that have cost them in a couple of these games.
Some slight mess-ups from Saigon. That being said, I think Game 1 and 2 were both very good. I think we saw some good gameplay, even if teams did get caught out. I think even here in Game 3, this has been a good game. It's just been that Mark has absolutely stomped Harsmed in this matchup.
Yes.
As we kind of said earlier, slightly Camille favored. Once we get a few more items on the Tryndamere, maybe this turns around. Froggy's just waiting. He's waiting. He's saying, Marcus, go in. I dare you, Shadow Surge! And he misses the mark! Pun intended. Marcus hookshots out to safety, and well, Saigon Buffalo get nothing out of the play.
It's tragic, because Froggy has a good amount of gold and a good amount of potential to have agency inside of a game like this. When BJ is down this far, or not necessarily down, but on a champion like this Viego, and especially goes for like the Kraken Slayer, it feels like you have a lot less impact because you have a lot of damage, but it's really focused on being in that melee range and not really being able to survive a bunch. It's about getting those Kraken Slayer procs off for BJ. And so because of that, Froggy, with the advantage he got, I really want to see him get around the map and have impacts like this. If he lands that on Marcus, Marcus doesn't have a lot of magic resist to work with. That means that he probably gets chunked down far enough to where not only can they get a kill onto him with Harsmed and with Froggy, but they can then push for bottom tower. And that's a lot of gold kind of influx into Saigon Buffalo. Unfortunately, does not come to fruition. So the play thought is there from the side of Saigon. I like that Froggy's going to get out and about a little bit more, but you got to be able to capitalize on plays like that.
And one of my issues for Saigon Buffalo's draft was, oh no, Marcus, you got, oh my god!
Oh, it's Cho'Gath ultimate on like an 8-second cooldown.
He's just going to do that again and just kill him.
Yeah, maybe. It looks like Hosma has decided that that is not his fate today, so he decided to back off and just give this bottom tower. But Marcus is an absolute menace at this point.
Absolutely, and I think my issue for Saigon Buffalo's draft was the fact that with what they had drafted, I don't think it was able to skirmish well, which is what we have come to expect of VCS teams, as Taki's stuck in a bit of a tricky situation. Will be able to Abyssal a dive out. Now the focus being dropped down onto BJ, as in goes a Froggy. Shogun gets the kill onto Ikigai. BJ now trying to get onto Yoshino, picks up the kill with a Heartbreaker. And Marcus, maybe a little bit too late to the party, means that Saigon Buffalo get 2 kills for nothing. And they could look to take the Baron Nashor on spawn. This could be incredibly risky, especially with Marcus still alive.
This is super fast, though. You've got a Tryndamere, you've got a Kraken Slayer Viego, and you've got a 2-item Aphelios to be able to rock this with. Look how fast this has gone down. It's already half health. It only literally spawned 8 seconds ago. They're losing towers for it. I think this is the trade-off. Yes. Slater ultimate. I don't think you're going to be able to pop it. They're not going to be able to steal. There was defense from Taki. Everything was okay right there for the side of Saigon Buffalo. The trade-off was they give up immediate gold in exchange, or I guess immediate tower structures in exchange for this Baron buff, which does get their gold pretty high. I mean, it's down to a 2,000 gold advantage for Flash, and hopefully they're going to be able to convert this into more outer towers, because bottom outer is still up, mid outer is still up, things like that. And everything in this play, everything was so weird because it looked like the miss of the Moonlight Vigil, the Galio engagement was looking great for Flash. And out of nowhere, Froggy just lands in the middle of this team, throws down the W, flashes out, and all of a sudden, Team Flash has no legs to stand on. BJ gets to bully off what was the Galio on the left side of the fight. And after those two are down, there's just no fight remaining from the side of Team Flash. It felt like it was one really quick pick from Froggy that did make a massive difference. We love to see it. It's very, very seldom that we've said anything about Froggy being able to win out a game for Saigon Buffalo, but it feels like he has to be one of the people that contributes incredibly to a game like this. His backline presence is so big on this Vex. That's going to push back Slater. That's going to push back some of the backline, and that's going to mean that Marcus is going to have to really play a lot more safely to make sure he doesn't just die on the front line and give his team up completely in a team fight.
Hook shot, Marcus going in. The focus is onto Shogun. Does he have the damage? Well, everyone is collapsing down. Shadow Surge used, but Marcus is still full health. Moonlight Vigil doing a fair amount of work onto Slater's health bar and onto Yoshino as well. But do Team Flash want more? When it comes lightning, lands onto Shogun and Hasmed. Saigon Buffalo with 1 member down. Ocean Drake here as well. Hook shot, the focus onto Beanshay, as the hero's entrance is dropped down as well. Froggy just trying to do his best to poke down the members of Team Flash, but this is an Ocean Soul, and Saigon Buffalo surely have to try to contest this, but they can't. So it's just gifted over to Flash.
It's a painful situation. I don't think you could take a full engagement right there against Team Flash, so I respect that they're willing to go up against the Ocean Soul. It's a tough one, but it actually has a pretty low win rate, believe it or not. I'm pretty sure Yulwei is the one that it always... Yeah, he basically just shit talks this soul is not really ever having much of an effect. My fear for it in a game like this is that it makes Marcus nigh unkillable. Already, Marcus is incredibly hard to defeat, especially because the magic damage pretty much exclusively comes out of Froggy at this point. So you combine that with a bunch of self-sustain, especially through what is effectively burst patterns from the Vex that can't outright one-tap Marcus, and you throw that alongside like Lulu, who's been able to use like the ultimate and then everything else to defend this frontline Camille. And it feels like Marcus is just going to be able to stand in the front of everybody and not worry whatsoever about anything. As the damage starts to come through, eventually, your Tryndamere is going to hit a lot harder, your Viego is going to hit a lot harder. But really, the important bit of this is that armor for Marcus is just going to make him basically a frontliner and also a massive damage dealer that is going to be unrespondable to by most of Saigon unless they're able to focus him down very quickly.
I'm still waiting for the Lord Dominic's Regard to be picked up by Shogun, but looking from what he's building, I think he might be going towards... Actually, I don't know what he's going towards.
It can go to Lord Doms. No, it can still go to Lord Doms, because it's 2 long swords that go into the weird bow-looking thing that ends up building into Lord Doms. I cannot remember. I think Last Whisper is what it's called.
He's got the critical strike cloak. Okay, never mind. Actually, hookshot coming in. Taki's going to devour Shogun, who's able to flash away. Now just trying to do damage onto Marcus, but Marcus is still full health. Froggy practically dead, forced to go golden, and Shogun 3-0 is not having the impact. Moonlight Vigil doesn't even land onto Slater. It's now a 2v4. Shogun desperately trying to kill Slater, but unable to do so. 4 kills for 1. Team Flash coming out on top 24 minutes in, and Team Flash will take the first step to destroying Saigon Buffalo. They could even end the game. It is only BJ left alive. Taki up in 7 seconds time. This will be a 2v4. BJ, we said he had one of his best ever performances in game 1. He needs to make the play of his life right now, but he's going to be unable to do so. And it is a Team Flash who will take the 2-1 win over Saigon Buffalo.
What a performance from Team Flash, kicking off this split, equalizing the number of wins they had from the previous. Insane stuff from this team. Okay, first off, Marcus with a performance of a lifetime was literally a raid boss. He was unkillable in a game like that. They really desperately needed somebody to be able to rip through that health bar, but unfortunately the goal just wasn't there. Able to leverage that Camille perfectly for the rest of the team to follow up on any team fight whatsoever. It was an attempt from Froggy and also from Shogun. Both of them had okay team fights towards the end of that game, but they just did not have anywhere near enough to get through just how powerful that Marcus truly was after that insane early game. And honestly, again, the solo lanes were great, but Marcus himself had a fantastic performance. Hasmed, again, he's perpetually top 2 top laner, top 3 top laner, and Marcus being able to have performances like that is super, super optimistic for what this team is going to have into the later parts of the split.
Honestly, absolutely incredible from Team Flash. Games 1 and 2, very close. Game 3, that was one-sided. That was a stomp. Sure, Froggy looked like he was playing well. In fact, honestly, I don't think Saigon Buffalo played too badly. However, with more thoughts on the game, more thoughts on this series, we're going to be throwing over to our wonderful analyst desk.
Thank you very, very much for such an enjoyable cast of the whole series. What a banger to start of the day. And I'm very sorry that we weren't able to show you beautiful faces because Boots trolled me. But we are going to be able to see the casters in Series 2, so stay tuned for that. It's gonna be a great one. But first, let's focus on this Game 3. Flash starting the split with a win, and that's already equalizing the win score on the Series side, at least, from the last split. So that's quite a good start for them. Who wants to start? Tim, maybe. Why did Flash win this game? Why did Saigon Buffalo end up losing this series?
I think this was a series of junglers. I think it was decided by either jungler. Game 1, BJ, we talked about it multiple times, had a complete pop-off performance. And I think silently Ikigai in Game 2 and 3 was just always on top of the Drakes. I mean, they got 8 Drakes in a row. Going through Game 2 and 3, they didn't give up a single Drake to their opponents. And they just had perfect objective control. I think they lost a second Herald and a first Herald inside 2 games. That was basically every objective they lost, and the Baron, I think, on top. So I think overall, just Ikigai was really, really good at just bringing ahead lanes. And then you had, of course, a really good performance on Marcus. But again, it was the Xinzhao being there for the dive, getting the commit ahead in the matchup that is basically decided by Snowball. And Marcus has played it well then, but overall I think the junglers just popped off completely.
Yeah, I think we should need to keep Hasmed away from the men with North genre, because his Yasuo performance, that Tryndamere was very reminiscent of that.
Oh, no.
Keep away from the men with swords genre of champion, and I think Hasmed's okay. Now yes, that early game came out from the side of, well, from both teams really. Getting that trade kill onto Tryndamere level 1, great play from Marcus. Ikigai coming in, punishing him again, getting that waves to crash, giving that experience lead, which led to that level 6 where the solo kill comes through. From there, Tryndamere is gone. He cannot side lane against a Camille from there on out. We saw those Qs that were chunking them in. Didn't help that the other person in that first gank, in that first blood, BJ went for the Kraken Slayer, which is very, very snowball, but he couldn't get anything going. So that means, because he wasn't snowballing, if he went in to try and get a reset, he just dies pretty much immediately. That's why you still go to find something. You need that tank to get that first reset. It's despite Froggy's best efforts and a good start from the bot lane, that top jungle duo just kind of entered them.
Yeah, that's very true. And I want to reiterate how important this series is. Now, you might say, okay, we're in week 1, this can't be that important. But in the VCS we only play 14 best of threes, and so many times a team has failed to make players off of being one series short, and especially in these kind of situations where Saigon Buffalo and Flash are expected to end up, at least by me, expected to end up in a very similar win count. So I expect both of these teams to fight for 4th place. And now Flash already starts with a direct win against one of their competitors for the playoff spot. So that's a super good start for them. And I want to go away from the series and just look ahead for both of these teams. What do we take away from this series for both of these teams after a disappointing winter? Let's start maybe with the loser, Saigon Buffalo. They looked, in my opinion, a little bit better mostly than some of their performances in winter, but still not quite where they were in spring 2021. So some good, some bad. What's the verdict? Tim, maybe to start.
It was a very mixed performance. I think they had some flashes of brilliance. But overall, I think the big question is going to be the solo lanes and the consistency of the solo lanes, because we saw Hazmat had a very good game too. Okay, we give him, it is a signature. Akali had a performance there, couldn't really impact the game though going into team fights. And then Froggy had a game 1 where he didn't have to do anything, then a very bad game 2, and a good game 3, but where again he got ahead, he had an assassin, but he couldn't actually do anything with the kills he had. He had that one good team fight where he ended up doing something, but otherwise in team fights he didn't have any impact. There were multiple missed ultimates. So if you win those lanes and if you have those pop-off performances, especially on those assassins, you have to see how your teamfight execution looks, and you have to work on that.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say they leveled up, but I'm not so sure they've leveled up enough in relation to a lot of the competition, because Flash has greatly improved. Secret seems to have stepped up quite a bit as well from yesterday. So if BTS and SBTC look as bad as they did yesterday, I mean, Buffalo shouldn't be bottom 2, but it doesn't seem like they're going to be at the top, which a lot of people were hoping.
Yeah, they had good results in the C qualifiers so far, but first series in the actual league is a little bit of a downer, and they will play tomorrow again. They are one of the teams with 2 series in week 1, and their opponents tomorrow are Luxury, who looked really strong yesterday. So that's a very difficult prospect. Of course, maybe a bounce back opportunity for them, but going down 0-2 in week 1 against 2 of the close competitors, I'd say. Maybe Luxury not so much, but Flash definitely. It would be a bad start. So we're going to see more from Saigon Buffalo tomorrow. Stay tuned for that. Let's finish this first segment on the last segment, I should say, on the first series with the Team Flash, the victors. The glorious return from Slater. I wouldn't say he was the star of the show. He was definitely a fine contributor, and he showed us some Zeri performance. He showed us good positioning in the last game on Jinx. But for me, standout play is definitely jungle and top lane. We talked about the jungle already in Ikigai. Marcus had some very bad performances in one of the games, and then a very good one in the last one. So much more positive, I assume, for Team Flash. Marby, what do you think of them?
Much more positive than I was coming in. Slater has seemed to fill in quite nicely. Quite a few mistakes from Arte still in terms of getting caught out. Marcus a bit inconsistent. The big hole for me is still this mid lane. Yoshino, we saw he looked good on the rise when he got Froggy self-counter picking into it, but he got absolutely smashed on the Galio. It didn't look great at all. So I'm still very concerned about this mid lane as it moves on up against real mid laners, basically. Up against the Cardi's Yado Glory. That sort of thing, I think it's going to be a huge weakness going into those sort of matches. But overall, much better than I was expecting. Ikigai looks good.
That's definitely a very positive light, especially coming from a split of Dante performances. Tim, you get the last analysis of this segment. What's your opinion of Flash now that you've seen them play a very brawly series against Saigon Buffalo?
I think we saw a bit of a development of playstyle. I think play into top lane, get Marcus ahead, because if Marcus is ahead, he can really snowball, and he has a lot of mechanical skill that he can execute. Yes, he does do a few positioning mistakes, especially, but that's what you're expecting from a basically rookie player who only played a half a split up until now. So basically, that's what I'm seeing there. Yoshino's is mostly a question mark for me. He had good Rise performances. I think the Galio in the last game was also a really bad pick. I don't think you have a great matchup into Vex, and then he didn't play it great. Really didn't look like his champion. So maybe you have to reinvent yourself and see what really works as a champion in mid lane for you. But a big standout player is Ikigai. This guy, in game one, we talked a bit outside off screen. We talked a bit about it. His game one wasn't terrible. It wasn't like he was inting or anything. It's just BJ probably had one of the best jungle performances like ever in game one, and was really just smurfing on the game. And Ikigai couldn't keep up. But in game 2 and 3, he was very good. He always was in the right position, got all the drakes, played around the win conditions, and overall had a great series. And I think if he performs like that going forward, he could easily be in the contention for the best jungler in the VCS, which usually is a very high title because it's one of the best roles, if not the best role in the VCS.
Okay, we are ending on a huge note here. Wow, Marby, what do you have to say to that? That's aggressive, that's for sure.
That's a very bold claim, considering the what he has to contend against. But sure.
And speaking of what he has to contend against, in the jungle position, there are some huge question marks for the next series. We have our rematch of the winter final. Went to 5 games there. Let's hope for 3 games later today. It's Gum facing off against Cerberus. And especially on the Cerberus side, I don't want to spoil anything, but expect some, well, unusual players maybe to step up to the stage today. But that's going to happen in 30 minutes roughly. We're going to introduce you to the matchup in due time. But for the first series, that's us for now. See you in just 30 minutes. Grab something to eat, to drink, get comfortable. And we're going to be back with the match of the week, Cerberus against Gum.